Good morning, all the invitees and guests for today's roundtable conference on Ambedkar and Intersectionality in Indian Society, organized by Dr.B.R.Ambedkar Open University in collaboration with Professor G. Ram Reddy Center for Research and Development, GRC, R&D, as part of Social Empowerment Fest from April 5th to April 14, 2025. Today we are organizing, that is on 12th of April, we are organizing roundtable on Ambedkar and Intersectionality in Indian Society. Once again, I welcome all the guests, directors, deans, heads of the branches and various service associations, office bearers. It's my proud privilege to welcome today's guests. Now I welcome President of today's program, Professor E. Sudharani Garu, Director, GRC and RD. Kindly come onto the stage and occupy the chair, madam. Also, I welcome today's chief guest, Professor K.S. Chalam Garu, is going to join through virtual. Welcome you, sir, once again on behalf of the Dr.B.R.Ambedkar Open University. He is a former Union Public Service Commission member and former Vice Chancellor, Dravidian University, Kuppam, Andhra Pradesh. On behalf of all the staff of Dr. B.R.Ambedkar Open University, I welcome you, sir, once again. Thank you for joining through virtual. I welcome resource persons, Professor Bhangya, Department of History, School of Social Sciences, University of Hyderabad. Professor Gummadi Sridevi Garu, Professor, School of Economics, University of Hyderabad. Professor Sreepati Ramudu Garu, Professor and Head, University of Hyderabad. Professor V. Ratnakar Garu, Head Department of Hindi, Moulana Azad National Urdu University, Hyderabad. Dr.Sowjanya, Tamalapakula, Assistant Professor, School of Liberal Arts and Humanities, Woxsen University, Hyderabad. Also, I welcome Shalini Maria Lawrence Garu, author and columnist, Tamil Nadu. Kindly come onto the stage and occupy the chair, madam. It's my proud privilege to welcome our Honorable Registrar, sir, Dr. L. Vijay Krishna Reddy Garu. Kindly come onto the stage and occupy the chair, sir. Now I request to Professor Sridevi Garu, kindly present a floral bouquet to our Professor Bhukya Garu. Now I request Professor Ramana Garu, kindly present a flower bouquet to our Gummadi Sridevi Garu. Now I request Dr. Nagaraj Garu, kindly present a flower bouquet to Srivi Ratnakar Garu. Ramudu sir. Yeah, Dayakar, kindly present a bouquet to Ratnakar Garu. Yeah. I request to Nagaraj Garu, kindly present a flower bouquet to Sowjanya Garu. Now I request Srimati Anita Garu, Anita is available. Yeah, kindly present a flower bouquet to Maria Madam, Shalin Maria Madam. I request all the dignitaries on the dais kindly proceed for the offering floral tributes to Dr. B.R.Ambedkar portrait and lighting of the lamp.
A hearty welcome once again to this very important roundtable conference on Dr. B.R.Ambedkar and Intersectionality in Indian Society. For taking their time from their busy schedule and be with us. And thank you all the directors, deans and HODs and our student friends. And at the foremost, I thank Prof.K.S. Chalam sir, who is kind enough to accept our invitation and be with us to be the chief guest of this event. Due to some reasons, he could not join us physically. He's online. And I also invite all those who joined online to this roundtable conference. Observing as a part of Social Justice Week, call from the state government of Telangana, and also our University Vice Chancellor, Professor Ganta Chakrapani's initiative to observe these week-long celebrations and commemorating Dr. Ambedkar's contribution in a multifaceted way, like, in different aspects, whether it is seminars, organizing academic seminars, discussions, debates in the headquarters as well as at study centers. Importantly, our students also, we have conducted several programs. It started with Babu Jagjeevan Ram's Jayanti on April 5th, and with a very important discussion or a talk. And on 8th, there was a talk also here. And April 11th, yesterday, we had 2-3 events. Very morning, we met and one seminar was conducted and multiple aspects of Baba Saheb Ambedkar. And evening, there was one Kavi Sammelanam. Morning, we had a talk by Tirumali on BC, the census of BC census and empowerment. And today, we are going to have this roundtable, and 13th, the reading of preamble, and 14th, observing Baba Saheb Ambedkar's birth Jayanti. So this different aspects to emulate the contributions of the great son of India and the intellectuals of the world, Baba Saheb Ambedkar, who was a jurist, a constitutionalist, and whatnot, like architect of Indian Constitution, and who made, or rather, who was instrumental in building the modern India. So the process of coming to today's topic, I'll just take 2 minutes to introduce the theme, and then as a presidential address also, the process of overlapping the Indian various types of identities. We have several identities in Indian society, and to understand the power dynamics in a society, the power which is almost always unequal, and Indian society got segregated both horizontally and vertically, dominating one another. Sreepati. Yeah, welcome Sreepati to this. So understanding these dynamics in a society demands a holistic and comprehensive approach to community as well as in the society. So today's theme is the intersectionality, which examines how multiple social identities intersect, and privileges also. At this one time, there is privilege to certain sections, and at the same time, certain sections have been subjected to the discrimination in the name of caste. So it recognizes these identities of gender, caste, class, ethnicity. Each of these problems don't exist in isolation. They interact with each other. And terms of intersectionality is coined by Kimberly Crenshaw in 1989, but long before, a decade, I think a century before, almost 90 years before, Baba Saheb Ambedkar implemented this kind of addressing these problems. The intersectionality of these problems have been addressed by Baba Saheb Ambedkar. His focus was primarily on caste, particularly the plight of the downtrodden and systematically marginalized by the Hindu social order since centuries. And he argued that caste was not just a social hierarchy, but a structure that graded inequality, inherently tied to economic exploitation, political exclusion, and cultural dehumanization of majority of the people. So his critique extended to gender and the Dalits and vulnerable sections in the society. So B.R. Ambedkar, he argued that if caste system is intact, the real democracy would not be possible. Therefore, he chose annihilation of the caste, which is a cornerstone for understanding his intersectional sensibilities. And he argued that caste was not merely a social division, but a graded inequality. So, not going much into the factors, our resource persons are here to talk about more about Ambedkar's contribution to education and the gender empowerment, and his relevance to intersectionality also lies in the critique of power structures, whether it is gender and which is intrinsically embedded in the society. So, Ambedkar's legacy in intersectional scholarship lies in his refusal to fragment identities. He saw justice as invincible, requiring simultaneous challenges to caste, gender, economic hierarchies. His work remains touchstone for understanding how overlapping oppressions shape the lives, offering a distinctly Indian lens on global conversation about equity and liberation. So today's, at this juncture, it is pertinent to understand various processes, methods, tools that Babasaheb Ambedkar adopted to address these challenges, and he adopted to understand this, how he understood these intersectionalities through his enormous writings, volumes of his writings and speeches, and the movements which he has taken up right from Mahat to the last Dhammadiksha, and how he strived throughout his lifetime to address them. And Ambedkar identified the process of attempt to study Indian social phenomenon, worked throughout to his life to achieve the social justice. So we are observing the Social Justice Week, and this is much relevant to the present day discussions. Government of Telangana has directed universities to observe this equity and inclusivity, and Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University, true to his ideals. So, in all the textbooks of Ambedkar Open University, that we try to emulate his ideals and ideas in our vision and mission of Ambedkar Open University. And our struggle is not for just, some benefits, but Ambedkar says that, it's a reclamation of human dignity. So this kind of, we find education as a weapon or the method to address these challenges in the society. So let us invite all our resource persons who are expert in their own way. They're all working on these intersectionalities. Bhangya is working on the ethnicity and tribal issues, and Sridevi on economic inequalities, and Sowjanya and Shalin working on intersectionality as a part of their research. Sreepati Ramudu on the constitutional remedies, and Ratnakar in the literature field, how to address these dimensions, inequalities. So with this introduction of mine, I welcome once again the august resource persons of our university, and thank them for being with us, taking time. Thank you so much. Friends, Professor Chalam sir is a great educationalist, and he was with us. Professor Chalam, sir, is a member of the was a member of Union Public Service Commission from 2005 to 11, a well-known political economist, educationist, and a scholar of studies in human development. He was successfully completed 6 years of tenure from 1st January to 11 as acted as in-charge chair, a senior member of UPSC. He led an official delegation to Australia to study the functioning of Federal Service Commission and the recruitment policies at the Commonwealth and the states of Australia. He served as Vice Chancellor, Dravidian University, Kuppam, Andhra Pradesh. He is known as the founder of Academic Staff College Scheme in the country and served as first director. He was a director of Swami Ramananda Tirtha Rural Institute, Bhudan, Pochampalli, and Kalinga Seema. He got the distinctions of the award, Kalinga Seema Award in 1985, and he got a diploma in economics planning from Warsaw, Poland, traveled extensively more than 17 countries, And he presented papers at several conferences, Cambridge, Wisconsin, Columbia, and other universities. He taught in the Department of Economics, Andhra University, and he was a board of Madhya Pradesh government as member in 2002, and he was instrumental in drafting Bhopal Declaration. He got 28 books to his credit, and 14 books in Telugu and 150 research papers. Most of the writings are translated to Hindi, Telugu, and other languages. He was a founder of South Asia Journal of Social Science, UGC listed journal, 23 years of editor, Journal of Native Indian and Diversity Studies. Sir is a versatile scholar, a flair of social human rights and activities in Secretary Amnesty International India, 84 to 85. He was associated with Right to Food campaign, NHRC, and a special rapporteur of South Zone 2, delivered presidential valedictorian at national conferences, and doing yeoman service to the community and academia. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us. And yeah, up to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Sudharani. Good morning to everybody. Professor Sudharani, Professor Bhangya, Bhukya, Sridevi, Sripati Ramudu, Ratnakar, Dr.Sowjanya, Dr.Shalin, Matia, and friends. My apologies to you all for my inability to be present there due to my prior commitments here. Professor Chakrabarti spoke to me in the morning, and Professor Sudharani has been asking me to be the chief guest. I don't think I'm a chief guest yet. I don't know. I've been associated with the Ambedkar University from the very beginning, from the time of Dr. translating. Later, Chalam in 2002 asked me to give the Dr. Ambedkar Memorial Lecture. And Sudharani has also given opportunities several times. So I'm a part of this Parivar, Ambedkar Parivar. Friends, we are meeting in a very crucial time as academics. The topic selected is intersectionality and Dr.B.R.Ambedkar. This intersectionality concept itself is a very new concept, mostly related to the black American woman. The concept of, or the approach of intersectionality comes in when there is a overlapping of oppression, dominance, and discrimination. All the three are experienced by black women in America, and black scholars started personally existing social science discourse. In a way, the emergence of this topic itself shows the failure of the mainstream social sciences in capturing the experiences, the troubles and tribulations of the marginal communities, whether they are blacks or Dalits or the Buraku made in Japan, and several 30 million victims of the system today we have. Therefore, I'm really very happy that Sudharani has selected this important topic. Ambedkar in the context of the intersectionality, whether intersectionality or the issues that have been raised by scholars in America, particularly black Americans, Hispanics, and other minorities there, are relevant to our situation. Yes, they are relevant because oppression, dominance, and discrimination. The three important things are common everywhere. I think they should make us to relate ourselves with that of the scholars. In fact, one scholar recently, one Indian scholar, I think, he contacted me that some Professor Brown is studying. They have scope for comparative studies of blacks' experience and Dalits' experiences here. In fact, Professor himself has started. He has consulted Professor W of Harvard University. He was the first black American became a professor there. I think he was also contemporary of Ambedkar. And he has also started reflecting on these issues. Therefore, this is time that we should reevaluate, rededicate ourselves to the studies of intersectionality and see that how these questions are interrogated. The basic function of a social scientist is to find out, innovate ideas and concepts, and interrogate the contemporary society and see how some of the problems are explained and the solutions are provided. So with this, I think we can get into the problem of, there are several technical problems in this because we don't have serious methodological approaches. We have not developed our own approaches. In fact, the approaches or the methodologies that are already in the mainstream are not in a way applicable to our situation. As the intersectionality question raised by the African woman itself shows that the present methodology is approaches that are available in the mainstream is, in fact, the World Social Science Report of the UNESCO 2010 has pointed out that most of the studies are done only in America and Europe. India does not figure anywhere. And in Latin American countries, in Africa, there are no studies on social issues. And therefore, they have set the report as a knowledge device. The report itself shows that knowledge device, how knowledge is divided, the continents and people, and so on. Therefore, I consider this topic is very important. It's a time that we are meeting at a crucial time when the world is facing the problem of the supremacy. With this, now I would like to bring to your notice studies that are already taken. They were when I had published my second book, Education Reconstruction in 1988. We have listed about 150 books on past. Today we have hundreds and thousands of books and studies are available. And this first study on caste was done by B.R.Ambedkar himself in 1916. Caste, genesis and mechanism. As a student himself, made a presentation in the Columbia University that was later published. That was the first study. And where he said that exogamy and endogamy is responsible for the recreation of casteism. That may not be the correct method of examining the caste at that time, 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago. Prof.Ambedkar started the study of caste issue. That was the beginning in the academic sense of it. There are alternatives. The civil surveys, British civil surveys, and the French scholars and the German scholars came and studied. That's a different one. But Indians, that was B.R.Ambedkar. Later, I'm told that a study of caste by lecturers, Professor Lakshman was a professor at Madras University, and he has also published, and Professor Ratnakar has also reproduced that book, Essence of Buddhism. Essence of Buddhism. Lakshman had also published a book on a study of caste in 1900, around that time, 1915 or 20. That book is also available online. So what I'm trying to say here is that there are very few studies, but not very in-depth studies related to the intersectionality of the problems that is faced. Because the mainstream scholarship doesn't bother about it. They may publish a publication without the what is called if you are I'm not bringing on caste question here or caste but if you are a Brahmin or a Bija, why should we say only Brahmin? The only thing. The Bija, you know that they question the patriarchy of their own system. And they attribute to us. They attribute that patriarchy is a serious problem. But we have our own. Adivasis have their own system. They have their own policy. They have their own family structures. Dalits have their own family structures. And in fact, this is the bigger issue. The issue is that some caste in South India are backward classes and they are scheduled castes. In fact, one important caste, our friends are there, they know. One caste, one race or tribe is a scheduled caste in Karnataka, that is a backward class in Andhra or Telangana. Likewise, because depending upon the conditions and on the basis of the 1911 census, where the British census officers employed 10 tests of untouchability, 10 tests of untouchability, and then used those 10 tests to identify a particular caste as scheduled caste or non-scheduled caste. Only caste. And then later 1935, what is called the 1935 Government of India Act, they have made a schedule, therefore we got the concept of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Till then, even Baba Ambedkar has also used till then only the concept of depressed classes. In the concept of depressed classes, it's a huge concept. Big concept. All the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, backward class, everybody was a part of that different Intersectionality. Raja has also written, before Dr. Ambedkar, Raja has also different classes of India. Different beliefs, something like that. So, we have in our country scholars, in fact, the whole lot of the protest movement in the Bhakti movement is also a kind of a movement that is against the caste system. Ravidas, Kabir, and in our case, Ramana, Veerabrahmendra Swami, and several others, they are there. They have been pursuing the mainstream Varna system, but as a social scientist, as a systematic study in the modern period, it was Baba Ambedkar who initiated this study in the 1960s. But friends, it's unfortunate that neither the mainstream scholars nor some of our friends have not seen the important publications of Baba Ambedkar. What are the important publications? They were not available before. From 1987 onwards, they are unpublished writing. In fact, we have today 3 important biographies published by my friend Anand Tumde, and there is another Anand Ashok Gopal, and one gentleman, Ashok, his name is, he's husband of our lady, Devayan. He has also written. These 3 important publications are different from other publications, Danaiki, Kuber, and others. They are different. In fact, there are many mistakes in Kuber study, particularly relating to the Brahmin teacher that gave his title to Baba Ambedkar. That's not correct. Likewise, there are several inconsistencies in those studies. But Anand Tumde is a huge book, and Ashok Gopal's is also a huge book, and that gentleman, Rasim, I am not able to recollect that name. But these 3 important books that came only in the last 2-3 years, they are very important because the studies that are based on archival data. They have gone to the archives and they collected a lot of information. Still there are, in fact, most of the Dalit scholars only write only about Baba Ambedkar. I had the opportunity to see 1 or 2 dissertations also from some universities relating to Dalit and Baba. They mostly concentrate only on his biography. Biography is not the but what we should concentrate today is about his serious writings. He's a colossus. He's a colossal scholar. He's a polymath. We call him a polymath. He's an expert in several fields of study. But he's one of the scholars who started interdisciplinary. In fact, his studies at Columbia University, if you look at the mark sheet, at Nevada, Visala, we have published a huge book in Telugu. You can find the mark sheet also. He has studied history, studied sociology, studied economics. Of course, he majored in economics, and in fact, Anand has brought a very interesting observation. He did not submit his PhD under Seligman in 1960. His scholarship has come to an end, and therefore he came to London School of Economics. And you know why Baba Ambedkar came to London? There is a great clamor for London School of Economics. Because London School of Economics was started by the Fabian sources. And friends, you may see in the online, and in fact, some 30 years ago, I said this. It was a G.V. Shah, who was a part of the Fabian, coined the term educate, organize, and agitate. Because in the United Kingdom, Labour Party, they have started in a Labour Party, because otherwise they were all Fabians. They wanted that the workers, and there was in fact Marx, Canella was also part of the Fabian group. They wanted that they should agitate for the continuation of the labor struggle in the United Kingdom. They were not forthcoming. Therefore, G.V. Shah gave this idea that educate, organize, and agitate. And BRAOU adapted not only the struggle, but also the independent labor party. He was the first who started the independent labor party in India. So, very good. But what I am trying to say here is that Ambedkar's works, particularly unpublished writings, please read the volume 3, 4, and 5. He has a visionary outlook of that there are sufficient elements in India that will ultimately bring fascism. People today are discussing about half fascism, 1/4 fascism, 3/4 fascism. What is this? Full fascism itself. In fact, I can read out one very important paragraph in volume 3. He was against, Nietzsche. In fact, Nietzsche has influenced several. Nietzsche has influenced Hitler. Nietzsche has influenced several other historians also. I don't want to name them because they are all responsible, but there are historians like Prof.Bhangya, Bhukya. No, some of those historians have influenced the materialist interpretations of history in India. I'm not going to that. But Nietzsche was influenced by whom? By Manu. This is a wonderful sentence. After analyzing Nietzsche said, the philosopher, great philosopher, and Zarathustra and Daspet Zarathustra. After analyzing the aspect of Zarathustra, he says, Baba says, this leaves no doubt that Zarathustra is a new name for Manu, and that thus of Zarathustra is a new edition of Manusmriti. If there is any difference between Manu and Nietzsche, it lies in this. Nietzsche was genuinely interested in creating a new race of men, which will be a race of supermen, as compared with the existing race of men. Manu, on the other hand, was interested in maintaining the privileges of a class who had come to arrogate to itself the claim of being super. Friends, today, what kind of governments we have? Both in USA and in India and elsewhere. Who is the Trump? Donald Trump? Donald Trump is his presidents, and Elon Musk. Both are Germans. Elon Musk was a South African German, migrated to United States of America and joined Trump. And in the White House we have also Indian visas dictating terms not to invite any more Indians into America. Lots of things are happening in the world. We are in defense. The things are changing very fast. And Ambedkar had a vision that what will going to happen to India if these conditions remain. Therefore, generally, scholars and including some of our scholars also wanted to limit Ambedkar only to writing of constitution. This is a small thing. Ambedkar was a professor till 1938. Till 1938 was a professor of law and also principal, one of the greatest law colleges in Asia, Government Law College, Bombay. Government Law College, Bombay was the principal and then he resigned in 1998 and joined it. He was a professor, part-time professor and principal and also practiced in the High Court of Bombay. And therefore, it's quite natural for him. In fact, he has been a legislator. From 1926, he was taken as a legislator of the Bombay Assembly. 3 years there, he has been a legislator, either MLC or MP or as MP, whatever. So, Ambedkar has not contributed only the writing of the Constitution. That is only one part of it. In fact, people try to say that B.R. Who is this B.R.? Oh, it's a civil servant. You know what civil servant? They are very good. There is no doubt about it. In fact, the 1935 Act, Government of India Act, itself constitutes the view, the document written by some dadas of the Secretary of State of UK. He has written that constitutes a part of the Indian Constitution because the nitty-gritty, how a secretary should be operated, who should be the president, who should be the governor, these things are there. They are not the real Constitution. That's only a skeleton. Ambedkar has given the life. Ambedkar has given the life. In fact, one of the American Isabella has said that casting the bones raised the skin. She has written a book on caste recently. She is a Pulitzer Prize. She's a winning journalist from America, a black lady, very good, daring lady. She has written on this. There are many things are coming now. But anyway, now coming to Baba Ambedkar and the Constitution making. What is this Constitution, my dear friends? I consider Constitution is a sort of contract. A sort of contract is done between Avarnas and Savarnas. Savarnas was represented Mahatma Gandhi and Avarnas represented Baba Ambedkar in 1932. 1932 is a bona fide. And before that, there is a long story. In fact, the whole demand for a Constitutional Assembly came from the communists. Everyone wanted a Constitutional Assembly to be constituted to prepare the Constitution. And later, Jawaharlal Nehru gave the object to the resolution. But whatever the resolution, it was an agreement between Ambedkar and Gandhi. And then 1932, 1935 Act. After 1935 Act, we have the Constitution.
Thank you
very much for giving the opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir, for the elaborate discussion, and you have thrown several points. The most important aspect you have touched upon is there is a need for evolving serious methodologies and approaches to understand Baba Ambedkar in view of his enormous writing. Thank you so much for making your time.
ఈ నెలలో నిన్న సాయంత్రం మనం మాట్లాడుకున్నాం. ఈ నెలలో ముగ్గురు అంటే త్రిమూర్తులు సమాజంలోని అణగారిన వర్గాలు, అంటే మనం అణగారిన వర్గాలు అనగానే ఏమనుకున్నాం అంటే బీసీ, ఎస్సీ, ఎస్టీ అని కాదు, మహిళలు కూడా ఏదో రాజులో లేకపోతే అధికారంలో ఉన్న రాణుల్లాగా ఉన్న వాళ్ళు తప్ప ఈ సమాజంలో భారతదేశంలో మహిళలు కూడా అణగారిన వర్గాల కింద లెక్క. వాళ్ళకి 3 సంవత్సరాలకి 5 సంవత్సరాలకి పెళ్ళిళ్ళు చేసి వితంతులుగా చేసి అటువంటి అంశాల మీద కూడా అటు జ్యోతిబా ఫులే గారు కానీ ఇటు అంబేద్కర్ గారు కానీ వారి దృష్టిని సారించారు, ప్రజల్లో చైతన్యం తీసుకురావడానికి ప్రయత్నం చేశారు. ఆ రకంగా విద్య అవసరాన్ని, స్వతంత్రం, అణగారిన అంటే మనకేదో ఆర్థికపరమైనటువంటిది కాదు, నోరు తెరిచే అవకాశం లేని వాళ్ళందరూ ప్రశ్నించడం నేర్చుకోవాలి అనేటటువంటి అంశం మీద తీసుకొచ్చారు. కాబట్టి మనం ఇవాళకి కూడా అంటే వే బ్యాక్ 100 years 50 years అంటే వీ కెన్ అండర్స్టాండ్, సొసైటీలో చదువు లేదనో ఇంకోటి లేదనో, కానీ ఇవాళకి కూడా ఏం తినాలి, ఏ భాష నేర్చుకోవాలి, ఏ వస్త్రాలు ధరించాలి అనేటటువంటి పరిస్థితి దేశంలో ఉత్పన్నం అవుతూ కనిపిస్తూ ఉందనంటే వాటన్నిటి మీద మనం ఇప్పుడు మళ్ళా ఇంకోసారి రీగైన్ అయ్యి ప్రశ్నించడం రావాలి అని భావిస్తూ, అందుకోసమనే మనం ఇప్పటికీ అంబేద్కర్ గురించి కానీ జ్యోతిబా ఫులే గారి గురించి కానీ జగజ్జీవన్ రామ్ గురించి కానీ ఇంకా వీరేశలింగం పంతులు గారి లాంటి వాళ్ళ గురించి కానీ మాట్లాడుకుంటూ ఈ తరం పిల్లలకి, ఈ తరం యువతకి వారు దేనికోసం పోరాడారు, దేనికోసం సొసైటీలో ఏం కావాలని కోరుకున్నారు, అవి ఇంకా అందని ఫలాలుగా ఉండటం అనేది మంచిది కాదు. కాబట్టి వారి బాటలో నడవాలి, వారి బాటలో నడిచి సమాజంలో ఇంకా మార్పు వచ్చేటట్టుగా ఉండాలి, ప్రతి వాళ్ళు స్వావలంబన సాధికారిత సాధించేటట్టుగా తయారు కావాలి అనే ఉద్బోధని మనం ఎక్కువ మందిలోకి తీసుకెళ్ళాలి. కాబట్టి అంబేద్కర్ గారి లెగసీని భుజాన వేసుకున్నటువంటి ఈ విశ్వవిద్యాలయం ప్రభుత్వం 3 రోజుల కార్యక్రమాలు అంటే 10 రోజుల కార్యక్రమాలుగా తీసుకొచ్చి ఈ కార్యక్రమాలని నిర్వహిస్తున్నారు. నిజానికి వైస్ ఛాన్సలర్ గారు ఈ సమావేశంలో ఉండాల్సి ఉండే, కానీ విపరీతమైన 4-5 days నుంచి హాలిడేస్తో కూడా సంబంధం లేకుండా ఎప్పుడు పడితే అప్పుడు సెక్రటరియట్లో గవర్నమెంట్లో మీటింగ్స్ ఉండి సారు కొన్ని కమిటీస్లో చైర్మన్గా అట్లా ఉన్నారు కాబట్టి వారు రాలేకపోయారు. నిజానికి నేను కూడా ఇక్కడ ఉండి వీళ్ళందరూ మాట్లాడే అంశాలు వినాలని ఉంది, కానీ కొంత డేటా ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ ఇమీడియట్గా పంపాల్సి ఉంది. అందుకని చెప్పి అధ్యక్షుల వారిని అనుమతి కోరుతూ నాకు ఈ అవకాశం ఇచ్చినందుకు ధన్యవాదాలు తెలియజేస్తూ సెలవు తీసుకుని
I am happy to introduce Professor Bhangya Bhukya. Welcome, sir. Professor Bhangya Bhukya is specialized in modern Indian history. His research interests include community histories, the effects of power, knowledge, governmentality and dominance, the state and nationalism, intellectual histories of subaltern communities, identity politics by forest and hill area people, and other areas. Before joining, presently sir is the Professor of History, University of Hyderabad. Before joining University of Hyderabad in 2014, he taught history at Utsavalu University during 1997 to 2010 and the IFLU 2010 to 2014, and he was a postdoctoral fellow at the School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London, and he was the Fulbright Nehru Visiting Fellow at the University of Pennsylvania. He was awarded by British Academy Visiting Fellowship, University of London, and also recipient of Ford Foundation International Fellowship for his doctoral studies during 2003 to 2006. Today, sir will present on Adivasi question and Ambedkar. Thank you, sir.
Chair of the roundtable conference, Professor Sudharani Garu, friends on the dais of the dais, Jai Bhim to everyone. At the outset, I congratulate and appreciate Dr. B.R.Ambedkar Open University for organizing this roundtable conference on intersectionality, and also doing a week-long program, Social Justice Week, on the occasion of all the three important anti-caste crusaders of our society. Actually, I proposed the government of Telangana to declare April as Dalit Bahujan History Month. Unfortunately, that did not happen, but Open University has come forward to at least celebrate 1 week long programs. Friends, we all know B.R.Ambedkar has been growing day by day, and some of our friends are very unhappy about this. So there is a lot of a talk on B.R.Ambedkar. There is a kind of thing. On one hand, some groups are appropriating B.R.Ambedkar. At the same time, on the other hand, they are also separating B.R.Ambedkar from various social groups by saying Ambedkar did not speak on this group, that group, and all that. But we all know, if you read B.R.Ambedkar, how he was committed for the liberation of all the depressed castes and classes of the country. One can see a universal human being, universal humanity in B.R.Ambedkar. Adivasis, he was speaking for backward castes, he was speaking for the women, upper caste women, lower caste women. So he was talking about all these sections of the society. It's not that only Dalit caste, okay, and particularly Muslims. There is a separate text and book by Prof.Ambedkar, Pakistan or Partition of India, where he actually talks a lot about Islam and Islamic society. Means when he was thinking of conversion also, he read Islam very deeply, and he made a lot of comments on various practices in particularly Muslim society, about parda, about gender question, about the communitarian life in the Muslim society and all that. So now our RSS friends trying to play with various statements, saying that Baba Sahib said this on Muslims. Baba Sahib said this on Gandhi Adivasis and OBCs. And they are trying to separate or create kind of tension between the communities. Now, if you see, particularly after 90s, Professor Chalam was also mentioning this. There is a complete change or shift in academics as well as both in the political domain. If you see the publication after 90s, whether it is history or economics or sociology or take any social science, they cannot escape from caste question. They cannot escape from without referring Ambedkar in their study. So lot of books are now published, has been published on caste. Almost every day there is some book on caste in the market. It was not the case before 90s. Okay, 90s is basically a benchmark in many respects and also in political domain. Now every political party is talking about Ambedkar. So there is something in this man, and that is why he is growing day by day. As a historian, I can tell you, after death, nobody celebrated in such a way. Okay. So, friends, as a historian, I can tell you, history is not a horizontal kind of line. It's very much a zigzag line. Means you have so many tensions in the history, and one cannot pick up a particular statement and just generalize the whole thing. I mean, so one has to understand a particular statement in a particular context. In what context Baba Sahib Ambedkar was speaking about Muslim or OBC or about Adivasis, that one has to understand. If you don't understand that, then you will be misled or misunderstood. You will be carried away by false propaganda, because these days WhatsApp universities are very popular. It's actually maligning all our minds, poisoning our minds. So one has to really very very careful. I mean, just take example. Say I mean, in history, Professor Chalam was also mentioning this Pune Pact. Now, Pune Pact was a disastrous thing for Baba Sahib Ambedkar. It was a loss, not only for him, but the whole downtrodden communities. But again, he wins back from the same Pune, okay, and comes to Constant Assembly. After the partition, Baba Sahib Ambedkar loses his membership in the Constant Assembly. Then again, Nehru intervene in this thing, and in consultation with Gandhi, they get it vacated Pune seat and get him elected and bring him to the Constituent Assembly. So there is a design, there is a particular strategy to say that from where he lost, he should be again win from the same place. And that is how Ambedkar comes back in the Constituent Assembly and take up this charge of drafting constitution. So means what I'm trying to say is one cannot go by just one particular incident. One has to understand Ambedkar holistically. Then only you will understand him what Ambedkar is. So friends, I am asked to speak on, not asked to, when I was approached, I told Professor Sudharani that I'll speak on Ambedkar and Adivasis question. As you know, Adivasi question is still unresolved question. Let me first say few things about Adivasi question, and then I'll come to Ambedkar's intervention in regard to Adivasi question. Adivasis basically are political communities. They have been living outside the state throughout the history. There is this anthropological understanding of Adivasi communities that they symbolize and represent our old civilization or the bottom of our civilization. That's not the true. Being wild, being jungly or hilly people is a consciously chosen, designed program by the Adivasi communities to keep the mainstream at the bay, to keep the state formation in their area at the bay. So that is how Adivasi communities in this country has been protecting themselves by adapting various strategies, by adapting shifting cultivation, by adapting rugged life, so by living in the inaccessible area. So this is all not the kind of traits of early primitive or Paleolithic man. They are very much part and parcel of the modern civilization. If Hyderabad is a civilized society, my Chenchu people in Srisalem, Nalamala forest are also modern and civilized. So that is how one has to see. So after British conquered the Adivasi areas, these areas were kept under separate administration. Initially, start from early, late 18th century and early 19th century, British actually formed a separate armed force to control the Adivasi areas. Very soon, means after they captured these Adivasi areas, they realized that these Adivasi areas are now, Adivasi people are now different from the caste people. And that is how they started making a boundary between caste society and Adivasi societies. And a separate, like our now present Salmajudum kind of force was created by the British to administer and look after the land order of the these regions separately. And in 1874, actually, British government came up with a act called Schedule Area Act, under which Adivasi areas were completely, means where Adivasi's concentration was very high, these areas were now notified and separated from the general administration. Okay. But the Adivasis have been resisting and fighting against the colonial state. If you open any history book of the modern period, you will learn how Adivasis were ferociously fighting against the British rule, as they were losing their control and right over forests, as they are losing their lands, as they were exploited by the money lenders. So there were a series of resistance. Okay, this all has been basically documented very well. So when Simon Commission came to India to take the reforms, political and administrative reform to the next level, every caste, every social group came with huge representations to this commission. So that is how the sectional politics becomes suddenly very, very apparent in India. So in this context, everyone was speaking on behalf of a particular group. Okay, so since Adivasis were not in the mainstream, were not educated enough by then, so somebody else were actually representing their questions. What should be done for the Adivasis and all that. So there was no any representation from the Adivasis. Okay, so that is to some extent a reason why Adivasis were not given any political representation in the 1935 Act. Almost all social group, okay, including women, were now given separate representation in the 1935 Act, but not the Adivasis. So although there was no representation, on religious representation from Northeast, there were some people in the Assam legislation and Calcutta to some extent, but in Bombay and Central India, I think, and Bihar Council as well, there was no any representation of Adivasis in the legislation. So this is the kind of background. Okay. So in this background, there was a lot of churning on the Adivasi question. Okay, whether Adivasis should be brought into mainstream politics, or they should be kept outside their outside the mainstream modern politics and given some separate protection as such. So there was a guy called A.V. Thakkar. Okay, this is popularly called Thakkar Baba. He was basically from UP, and he was with this servant of society, Indian servant of society, and he was a Gandhian. He actually was there in a Gandhi's ashram in Ahmedabad for some time. He did some mischievous thing with Gandhi. Then Gandhi throws him out from the ashram. So then he started working with in the 1920s, and he starts a association called Bhil Seva Samaj. Later on, he expand this association as Adima Jati Seva Samaj after 30s. This was actually done on Gandhi's suggestion. And they cite three texts or statements, not texts, statements which made by Ambedkar in various contexts. Okay, so these are basically one is from Simon Commission as a deposition, Ambedkar's deposition to Simon Commission. The other one is from Annihilation of Caste, 1936, and the other one is he gives a lecture to Scheduled Caste Federation, which is titled as Communal Deadlock and a Way to Solve It, which was given in 1945. So these three texts are basically used to Malay, Baba Sahib Ambedkar position on 13 millions of people living in the midst of the civilization are still in a savage state and are leading the life of hereditary criminals. So this is they show that this basically Ambedkar by colonial anthropological understanding in regard to the Adivasis. In the sense, he also believes that Adivasis are remnants of our early civilization. So there is another statement, very clear statement, which was made in 1945, which says it will be obvious that my proposal do not cover the aboriginal tribes. I may state the reasons why I have omitted them from my scheme. The aboriginal tribes have not as yet developed any political sense to make the best use of their political opportunities, and they may easily become mere instrument in the hands either of a majority or a minority, and hereby disturb the balance without doing any good to this to themselves. So this is this quote is made actually part of his speech titled "Communal Deadlock and Way to Solve It" in 1945. So against this, there was a discussion in Times of India between Thakkar Baba and Baba Sahib Ambedkar. Thakkar Baba on 7th May 1945, Ambedkar makes this statement on 6th, and 7th he gives a counter statement where he criticizes Ambedkar for not speaking for Adivasis representation in the legislation. Okay, and that statement was very negative kind of statement. And then on 18th, again, so you must have replied it immediately, but Times of India published Ambedkar's response. Will you kindly allow me space to reply to the letter of Mr. Thakkar, which appear in today's issue of the Times of India, in which he criticized my proposal for a communal settlement. Mr. Thakkar has taken up the Kudgals on behalf of the aboriginal tribes and has accused me of having shown utter disregard to the claim of these tribes in putting forth my proposal. Mr. Thakkar has sought to give point to his criticism by calling me a doughty champion of the oppressed and the depressed. Let me tell the Thakkar that I have never claimed to be a universal leader of suffering humanity. The problem of the untouchability is quite enough for me, for my slender strength, and I should be very happy if I could successfully rescue the untouchables from his clutches and those of Gandhi. I do not say that other causes are not equally noble, but knowing the life is short, one can serve only one cause, and I have never aspired to do more than serve the untouchables, who has Mr. Thakkar says are despised even by the aboriginal tribes. What is regrettable is that Mr. Thakkar should have formulated his criticism on the basis of such extracts from my speech as have appeared in the paper. If he had cared to read the full text of my speech, he would have realized that from excluding the causes of the aboriginal tribes, I had made what, according to my belief, I thought was a far better and a far effective proposal for their protection. There is no space available for setting out in detail this part of my proposal, and Mr. Thakkar would do well to consider my proposal for the aboriginal tribes before rushing into this press to accuse me of partiality and small-mindedness. The reason why I did not include the aboriginal tribe in the scheme of distribution of seats in the legislation is not the result of my antipathy to them, but entirely due to my belief that these aboriginal tribes do not as yet possess the political capacity which is necessary to exercise political power for one's own good. So this was the contest in which basically Thakkar was choosing particular statements and trying to criticize on that. He did not understand his whole speech in a holistic spirit. So that is the actually problem with this kinds of criticisms on Ambedkar. So there was, as you know, there was two committees on 5th schedule and 6th schedule areas. Again, 5th schedule committee was actually headed by Thakkar Baba. So Thakkar Baba was in a way architect of the Adivasi policy later on as well. And he was avoiding, so there was a lot of resistance actually for Adivasis, exclusion of the Adivasi areas from the general administration as well. He was not happy actually for giving self-determinism or autonomy to the Adivasi. So there was a lot of debate actually on this self-determinism and Adivasi autonomy in the Constituent Assembly. And there was another very important leader from Munda community, Jaipal Singh Munda, who was actually roaring in the assembly. And whenever he rise to Adivasi question, there was a lot of attack by the dominant caste, particularly BR and UP leader on them. And every time he was attacked, Jaipal Singh Munda, Ambedkar actually comes in his risk. Okay, so that is how self-determinism and whatever the provisions today enshrined in our constitution was very carefully chosen by Baba Sahib Ambedkar. So what I am trying to say is we have to understand Ambedkar in a holistic manner, not by picking up particular statements here and there given by him in a particular context. So that is what it's actually happening now, and we should understand that politics. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Absolutely true, Bhangya. Like, in WhatsApp, I too reacted to some of the people who says that, Ambedkar did not say this, but we need to understand in the context what he spoke and look towards his contribution in a holistic manner. Before Sridevi, I invite Professor Gummadi Sridevi, she from Professor, School of Economics, University of Hyderabad. Ma'am is going to talk on intersectionality and labor market discrimination. I request Ramna to introduce the guest.
I am happy to introduce another resource person, Professor Gummadi Sridevi garu. Presently, she is professor at School of Economics, University of Hyderabad. Madam did her PhD from Institute of Social and Economic Change, Bangalore. It's a research institute in 2005. And she has been teaching the courses of economics of discrimination, international trade and payments, livelihoods, microeconomics for over 19 years of service. And she has completed various collaborative research projects funded by ICSSR and University of Hyderabad and various other institutions. Her research areas includes food security, international trade, healthcare, gender, poverty, climate change, and economics of discrimination. And she has edited so many books. One book is published by Taylor and Francis on Ambedkar's vision of economic development for India, and co-authored other several books. She has published number of papers in various international and national journals and edited so many volumes. So she will present on intersectionality and the labor market discrimination. Thank you, madam.
A very good afternoon to all of you. I take this opportunity to thank Professor Sudharani for giving me this opportunity to be with you all this afternoon and express our views with the data. Coming from the economics background, whatever statements we make, generally we use the data. So I would like to show some of the facts, what we have been talking about, and what the government and other agencies are also trying to counter it, saying that we are having better growth rates and the better employment opportunities compared to the other countries. So why should we actually talk about the inequality or discrimination in the labor market in the present context when we are talking about the very high level of the economic inequalities? Generally, visible inequalities are seen through the income or asset holding capacities. But there are always invisible inequalities which we will not be able to see it when it comes to the gender, comes to the caste, race, or certain ethnic groups. What we are talking about the now certain groups of the tribes or the geographical identification of the certain groups also. So in this context, women from the stigmatized groups, especially coming from the marginalized communities, SC, ST, OBC and minority groups, are disadvantaged along two dimensions and have to battle in the labor market to have the better occupation as well as the better wages. So today I'll just try to speak about why there is an occupational segregation in the labor market when it comes to the different social groups, why there exist the wage differences between the men and women, as well as women coming from the different social groups also in the labor market. So the hidden inequalities, what we generally forget to notice is that the social norms, social perceptions of the individuals, as well as social legitimacy of the claims when it comes to the economic, political, or in terms of the property rights basically. So these norms were deeply, gendered norms are deeply rooted into the social culture of the society. Like we always assume that it is the responsibility of the male to take care of the economic responsibilities of the family, and the female's responsibility is to take care of the domestic acts or the care work, is what generally the social norms tell us. What does the discrimination in the labor market mean basically? When we are saying economic discrimination, it basically says that treating two equals unequally. The same kind of qualifications the two individuals would be having, but they are treated differently in the labor market based upon their caste, race, or the gender. And these discriminations arises because of the existing social discrimination in the society already. So the wage gap exists between the male and the female because there is a gap which actually comes from the generations in terms of the human capital abilities, or the pay differences arises from the difference in the choices or the preferences. Most importantly, the feedback affects what the societal norms give us basically. So the gender division of labor in the family, the same is carried towards the gender differences in the labor market, And the labor market, again, it comes back to the home, basically. So we continue with the certain form of the discrimination because of the existing social discrimination. So the gender roles played at the household are predefined based upon the gender. So when we wanted to look at the why there exists the wage gap between the male and the female, we have a lot of studies in the literature. The difference in the wages exists because of the difference in the education levels, differences in the skills, or differences in the training or access to the technology. But mainstream economists mostly talk about the visible indicators. But it was the Ambedkar who argued for the equal pay for the equal work from 1942 onwards, basically. So his major argument is that the labor market, the discrimination exists not only because of the differences in the levels of the education, but also due to the differences in the caste structure, because caste acts as an economic organization and there is a division of the laborer because there is no vertical mobility in the given caste structure. Hence, it hinders the occupational growth, those who are coming from the lower social groups. So, the argument, constitutionally, the argument is that there is everybody is equal in front of the law, where there should not be any kind of a discrimination, and prohibition of the discrimination on the grounds of the religion, race, caste, sex, or the place of birth, equal opportunity for all, and most importantly, abolition of the untouchability. But when we look at the last 60 years, what is the changing context of the female labor, occupational growth, or what is the changes in the wage rates for the different gender, the female labor force participation rates have been dismal over the past 2 decades. When we compare it with the average world or the global average growth rates, multiple factors in general will be influencing the woman's decision to enter into the labor market. Most important factor is the existing discrimination in the labor market, and majority of the women spend their time in the care work, domestic care work, and lack of access to the education for the women coming from the marginalized communities. And the literature also says that the dominant social group women will not be entering into the labor market as they already have the certain assets. Whereas the marginalized groups women enter into the labor market, but as they come from the lower social backgrounds, they have the less bargaining power in the labor market. So the overall, there is a problem of the accessing the different occupations, what we call it as the sticky wages or the glass ceiling in the labor market. So certain occupations are given to only few groups or one particular gender. If you look at the data, it very clearly tells us that there is an improvement in the accessing the labor market as the marginalized groups coming from the scheduled tribe, scheduled caste, as well as the OBCs has a better access to the higher education due to the various the affirmative action policies, both in the rural area as well as the urban areas also. But when we look at the workforce participation rate of the females in general over the various rounds of the NSSO, it has declined but slowly started increasing from the data, what we get it from the latest round of the NSSO, that is 2021 and the 22. But that increase is interestingly coming from the females joining in the agriculture sector, not coming from the secondary or the service sector. Although now the government is very clearly saying that we have actually increased the employment rate and generated the lot of employment. But where did they create that employment? Employment is created, but it is actually in the agriculture sector, not in the secondary or the service sector. When we look at the data, it is very clear that the service sector and the industrial sector, the growth rates of the employment are more or less stagnant over the last 2 decades actually. Then why females, with the increase in the education and with the stable fertility rates of the 2%, why they are not actually coming to the labor market? Most important reason comes out is that majority of the females spend their maximum time in the unpaid domestic care work or unpaid work what the family would be doing either in the agriculture sector or as a self-employed. So that's what this figure basically tries to tell us, that the unpaid work is higher when we compare it with the work. That is what is proven by the Time Use survey also, saying that average woman spends 19.5% of her time every day in unpaid responsibilities compared to the 2.5% by men. So there is a huge difference. But at the same time, during the pandemic, some of the studies also tries to say that because of the flexible timings, work from home, majority of the women also entered into the labor market. That is what the LinkedIn study says. But that particular study was not actually supported by the other existing studies or the CMI data or the other various data sources basically. So what is the kind of structural transformation over the years we have seen is that although there is a decline in the labor force participation in the agriculture for certain time period, now we see that agriculture is becoming an important sector which actually providing employment. Even that is coming down slowly now after the 2024, after the pandemic especially. The female labor force participation was much higher in the textile department and food, beverages, tobacco products, but all these sectors actually see a declining trend in terms of providing the employment when we look at the latest rounds of the NSSO. The construction is the sector which has provided the largest employment both for men and women, has also declined. So we see a clear structural and institutional factors that restrict the women from the supply side also. Northern India, they find that the wage gap between the male and female is much lower compared to the southern states of Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka, because the supply of the female labor is much higher in the southern states when we compare it with the northern states. That is again related to the culture, as most of the dominant social groups in the northern India do not allow women to enter into the labor market because they consider it as culturally not acceptable to send the female for earning purposes. So the one of the important reason why in general the female labor force participation is declining in India is the rise in the access to the higher education. Second, the increase in the time spent on the domestic care work is the another reason. And the most important reason is the quality of the jobs what the market is actually creating. So when the quality is low, the security is low, generally the females are not interested to enter into the labor market. The other important is now the trend is the rise in the gig economy also, where they find it much easier to work at their leisure hours from the work or the various other platforms basically. So the overall women unemployment rate has increased over the time period with the increase in the access to the higher education basically. And within the women, the young women's unemployment rate is actually increasing at a higher level. Now the question is, what exactly is happening to the marginalized group women when there is a affirmative action of the reservations? Because generally it is argued that reservation gives them as a free rider, but it is not. The other argument now what we find is that actually the reservations, although we say that SC, ST, OBC, EWS or the female has the reservation, but in terms of the total population, they are more than 70%. So the argument now is that the reservation is actually for whom? Is it for the other social groups or for the marginalized groups? So there is no doubt that the reservations in the educational institutions and the public sector employment, there is an improvement in terms of the accessing the higher education, as well as there is a reduction in the income inequality, not social inequality, income inequality because of the reservations. That's what, and the kind of the employment when we see, we group them into ABC. The marginalized groups percentage is much higher in the C groups when we compare it with the A and the B. So when, let me, given that background, now let me come to the women's empowerment, because when we talk about the women's empowerment, the four important aspects we need to understand, although generally we talk is that it is the financial access, because if a female has the bank account or if she has a regular income, they are empowered. It is not. It is basically the decision making at the household level and the confidence levels the female carries in the labor market, even at the household level also. So it goes beyond having the bank accounts, where we talk about the asset holding capacity of the females. When Dr. Ambedkar was arguing for the equal property rights for the females, we could see that various arguments coming out in 1940s against the Hindu Code Bill, saying that why females need the equal rights and the property. It can lead to the divorce rate, or the females are not going to obey the given culture, social norms are destroyed, or these are some of the arguments, and some of the media, the publications in the form of the cartoons is what proves that basically. But even now, when we look at the females who are holding the land on their name, is much lower in the context of India, and the northern states fare much lower when we compare it with the, on an average, only 11.6% of the female has access to the land or asset holding capacity on their name. But Ambedkar's argument why the asset education is essential for the females is that if the resources are controlled by the females, it will actually lead to the well-being of the whole family. Females, if they have asset access or they control the land, we see a change in the children's levels of the education. decision making as well as controlling the resources at the household level also. And interestingly, the NFHS 5 also gives us the data about the various characteristics of the female empowerment, because once they have access to the land and certain income, obviously they will have a better health indicators, better nutrition security, which will actually influence the future productivity of the nation. Because now the tragedy in most of the states is that, especially in Telangana and Maharashtra, we find that although the per capita incomes of the state is very high, majority of the children suffer with the certain forms of the malnutrition, whether it may be stunting, wasting, underweight. And 54% of the children below 5 years suffer with anemia. Around 60% of the reproductive age group women suffer with the anemia. If that is the situation, can we actually expect the future generation's cognitive skills to be better? And the second question is, can we actually expect the national productivity at a higher level when the children are actually suffering with the high levels of the malnutrition? And this is also one of the reasons why we see that the females who are in the reproductive age group, the mortality rate is also increasing in the context of the India. When it comes to the domestic gender-based violence also, although there is an increase in the access to the higher education, the violence is also at the higher level. And when it comes to the entrepreneurship or access to the finance, the females' rate is much lower when we compare it with their counterpart male members who are actually entrepreneurs. And the most importantly I would like to show is that the existing wage gap in the labor market for the same kind of the employment or the occupational opportunity. So that is what we call it as the sticky wages, where the females are paid much lower, and actually over the years it is increasing. Now it is 1.30, which implies that for the same kind of the work, the male member is paid 1.30 times higher when we compare it with the female members. And this discrimination is also seen in terms of the wages in the case of the social groups also. When we wanted to look at what is the wage difference or occupational difference, we generally use the discrimination coefficients, which basically tells us that the difference because of the education or the difference because of the training, skill development. But here the discrimination explains non-pecuniary characters, which we will not be able to see it in terms of the income. So if we calculate over the years, actually it is the endowment difference is decreasing and discrimination difference is increasing in general. The other important aspect what the Ambedkar was trying to talk is the political access to the females, which actually will lead to the decision making power at the various levels. So we could see a small change because of the reservations in the various political bodies made a difference. Although at the panchayat levels, because of the reservations, females coming from the marginalized groups becoming the panchayati presidents, most of the times the decision making is endowed with the either upper caste male members or their husbands, but still it made a difference in terms of certain decision making, especially providing good infrastructure or providing primary schools at the village level. So all this is possible with the existing social discrimination only if we annihilate the caste, is what Ambedkar's view. So without annihilating the caste, even if you are talking about the economic reduction in the economic inequality, it may not be actually changing. Thank you.
A very good afternoon to one and all. I am happy to introduce Professor Sreepati Ramudu, who is one of the speakers of today's program. Professor Sreepati Ramudu, Present Director, Head of Center for Social Inclusion Studies. He is also a social and political analyst on all TV channels and published many research papers on social and political issues. At present, he is working as professor in Hyderabad Central University and worked as associate professor Jamia University, Delhi, and assistant professor Assam Central University. He is an expert on constitutional studies, public policy, Dalit studies. In addition to all this, he authored various books and guided several research scholars. Thank you.
At the outset, I would like to thank Professor Sudharani Madam for this great opportunity. And I'm also thankful to Ambedkar University for inviting me several times to interact with you on several occasions so that it can be easily understood. The topic appears to be a little tricky when we talk about intersectionality. Unless we connect the topic with some personal experience, it would be a little difficult to understand the topic. When I attended Hyderabad Central University interview for the post of professor, I was asked a question. If reservation is provided on the ground of economic inequality, how would you respond? The question was this. Please listen carefully. They were just drawing our attention to reservations providing on caste basis. Then I said, that won't serve the purpose who it is intended to address. They have asked my response again. Why do I reject reservations? Particularly it is in the case of Dalits. Why not we can provide reservation to Dalits on economic grounds? Then I said, maybe you take poverty as a criteria when you take economic criteria as a base to provide job and other opportunities. When we take reservation economic criteria as a ground, maybe we will invite all sorts of people who are qualified to be poor, and we put them for a competition. Example, we can also ask a Dalit boy, a tribal, particularly a Dalit boy and an upper caste boy. Assume that these two are asked to face a competition because both of them are poor. They are qualified to be below poverty line. Now, whose chances would be more? The chances of a boy from upper caste, say for example, a Brahmin boy, would be more. Maybe both of them are economically equal, both of them are poor, but a Dalit boy's experience of untouchability, discrimination, poverty, altogether creates a different sort of experience, unique experience. Maybe both of them are equal only on economic grounds. This is not enough, and if you take economic criteria, economic base as a criteria to provide job opportunities or reservations, automatically it would help a Brahmin boy who has been carrying cultural capital, social capital for centuries together. A poor Dalit boy would not be able to compete a Brahmin boy because his problems are different totally. Therefore, the intersectionality's focus is to identify the unique experience of discrimination. Here comes Crenshaw's idea of intersectionality. In fact, as Professor Sudharani Madam has rightly pointed out in the beginning, Ambedkar has identified and addressed all these issues long back. But as an issue, as a separate entity, the idea of emergence of different new forms of discrimination has been in a systematic way identified and studied by Kimberly Crenshaw. And you see, identities are different and forms of discrimination also is different. And different identities carries different forms of discrimination. Each discrimination operates on its own on a single axis. This is all our experiences. But a single person might carry different identities, and different identities works at once simultaneously together. So also the forms of discrimination. Different forms of discrimination operate simultaneously at once on a single individual. And how to measure this discrimination? And often law ignores these forms of new discriminations. Crenshaw was drawing our attention to race and feminist orientations. It is where Kimberly Crenshaw focuses on the law, that she is a legal scholar. She focuses on a point that law should focus on the new sources of discrimination and exclusion. Coming to our own context, India, Constitution has been written in 1950 by Ambedkar, and Crenshaw is of very late, 1989, almost 40 years later. Ambedkar was able to identify different identities, and he was giving attention to all the identities and related forms of discrimination. Before Constitution was implemented, before the advent of Constitution, there were different forms of discrimination we know. Caste discrimination was there, religious discrimination, gender discrimination, discrimination based on ethnicity, and regional discriminations, all of them were there. And Dr. Ambedkar has tried his level best to use Constitution as a level playing field. He didn't ignore any form of discrimination. But there are certain forms of identities which were not given enough attention. One such identity was Dalit woman. See, Constitution, in fundamental rights, religion, race, caste, place of birth, sex have been given importance. And also, quote unquote, there is one important identity that only based on caste or only based on religion, this only carries altogether. But Ambedkar was scholarly enough to give attention to particularly marginalized communities like Dalits. Dalits' untouchability was given attention, his race, his religion was given attention, but unfortunately, Dalits are denied of religious conversions now. When you attach reservation to religious conversions, that is denied. But particularly when you talk about Dalit women, their experience and their identity is a little different from rest of the identities. So when multiple forms of identities and forms of discrimination produce a compound effect, its intensity would be more. And in such cases, there is no proper attention to a new category called Dalit woman. Dalit woman experiences untouchability as well as patriarchal hegemony, that apart from Dalit men's discrimination, that masculine discrimination. And gender as well as untouchability, these two are cases here with regard to Dalit woman. And such kind of new categories and new forms of discrimination needs to be given attention, which is the fundamental focus of intersectionality. To overcome all these forms of discrimination, Ambedkar tried to drive the Constitution towards one aspect where he took the Constitution as a level playing field. He provided space for minorities in the Constitution, which has never been an entity of attention before the advent of the Constitution. There was no importance to women in India, and Constitution of India has given equal importance to women with regard to all other genders. Like tribals, Dalits, all categories of people have been provided a space in the constitution. That way, Ambedkar was very conscious and far ahead of Crenshaw in providing, in accommodating all these identities. Now, he also goes to an extent of drawing our attention to a unique identity called Indian identity, beyond all these identities. He was drawing our attention particularly to one important matter, that to overcome all these identities, race, different caste, race, and all these things, one needs to understand the idea of nationality. Unless you feel that you are a nation, you won't overcome the problem of discrimination. This is one of the fundamental understandings of Dr. Ambedkar. That is why he defines the idea of nationality. Nationality is he argues that nationality is a feeling of blood relationship. You should all feel that you are relatives. And he draws our attention to the idea of caste discrimination. A society which has been divided into thousands of castes cannot become a nation. Under such circumstances, when you argue for a nationality, you are cherishing a delusion. It's not possible to have a nationality and nation as a concept. Therefore, he argues that nationality is a concept, is a corporate sentiment of oneness, and you build up one concept that we are all Indians, give up all other identities. So let there be only one identity. Let there not be a Brahmin, Dalit, BC, these kind of identities. Let there be only one identity, which is an Indian identity. And today, we see so many people talking about Bharat, Indian and all. Ambedkar has done this long back, but people were not kind enough to accept this idea. So, given this, Ambedkar has sufficiently provided all the basis in the constitution to overcome the issues of intersectionality. A Dalit is a poor person, an untouchable person, and religion-wise also he was given a marginalized position, but he gives an equal status to everyone. You see, when you look at the constitutions of the world, every constitution would carry a Bill of Rights, fundamental rights. All constitutions of the world, in all constitutions of the world, the first fundamental right is right to life. But in Indian constitution, it is right to equality. It is not that just accidentally this has happened. Ambedkar has deliberately incorporated right to equality as fundamental right, implying that without equality, even if you are alive, it doesn't make any sense. So, as Ambedkar has tried to provide a space for all types of discriminations, against discriminations, a right against all forms of discriminations, there are certain categories which needs to be provided more attention. As Bhangya has said, there were certain limitations when the constitution was formed. Dalit woman as a category needs to be given more important, and also categories like transgenders needs to be provided. And there is always a law and statutory procedures left over, and these issues can be addressed through these legal, constitutional and statutory processes. With this, I stop here. Thank you so much.
Very excellent sum up of the constitutional provisions and what to be need and what to be added when it comes to the contemporary contextual world, and keeping in view about the problems which arise. I call upon my brother Ratnakar, who's the head department of Moulana Azad National Urdu University, has 25 years of experience, a regular resource person, various international national seminars. He is authored and translated, please listen carefully, more than 100 books and poems in Urdu, English, Hindi to Telugu. Because of his efforts, Ramabai Ambedkar, Jalkari Bai, and various other unspoken, unheard heroes of the freedom movement came to life with his translated works. And he has many translated books like Galivana, Shudrini Shapam, Mapallis Surudu. There are very few examples. He is a recipient of 10 national awards like Veeracharya National Award, Kirti Puraskaram, Mata Savitribai Phule Rashtriya Sahitya Sammelan. He translated Savitribai Phule live also. And Boi Bhimanna's Literary Award. And recognizing his work, state government in 2014 awarded him with Dalita Yuvaratna and Dalita Seva Samman. He also worked as an advisor Telangana, All India Federation of SC, ST, OBC and Minorities Welfare Association, Chief Advisor, Andhra Pradesh, Dr.B.R.Ambedkar, Parinirvad Bhumi Samman Karyakramam Committee in 2022. Thank you, Ratnakar, for coming to our Ambedkar Open University. And I request him to address the gathering.
मेरे अंधेरों को न तुम बदनाम करो, तुम्हारी चांदनी ने जलाया है घर मेरा. सभी को नमस्कार, जय भीम. నా చీకటిని అజ్ఞానాన్ని చూసి మీరు నన్ను ఎగతాళి చేయవద్దు. మీరు ప్రేమ గీతాలు విరహ గీతాలు పాడుకునే వెన్నెల నా గుడిసెని కాల్చింది అని చెప్పి జయప్రకాష్ కర్దం అనే ఒక అంబేద్కరైట్ హిందీ పోయెట్ చెప్తారు. థ్యాంక్ యూ, జై భీమ్. హిందీలో కబీర్ గారు చెప్తారు, పాహన్ పూజే హర్మిలేతో మై పూంజు పహాడ్ ఎహతాతే చాకీ భలి పీస్కాయ్ సంసార్ అంటారు. రాయిని పూజిస్తే దేవుడు ప్రత్యక్షమయ్యే పని అయితే ఒక రాయిని ఎందుకు నా ఎదురుగా ఉన్న పర్వతాన్ని పూజిస్తానో, ఏ రాయిలో ఏ దేవుడు ఉన్నాడో 33 కోట్ల దేవీ దేవతలు ఉన్న మహోన్నతమైన భారతదేశం కదా నా మాతృభూమి, కాబట్టి నేను దీనికంటే అని అక్కడ కామ పెట్టి కబీరు నేను తిరగల్ని ప్రేమిస్తాను, దానికన్నా పర్వతానికన్నా తిరగల్ని ప్రేమిస్తాను, ఎందుకంటే తిరగలి నాకు తినడానికి రొట్టెనిస్తుంది అని చెప్పి కబీర్ చెప్తారు. హిందీ సాహిత్యంలో నిర్గుణ శాఖ సగుణ శాఖ అని ఉంటుంది. నిర్గుణ శాఖలో వాళ్ళకి ఆకారం ఉన్నది దేవుడికి. కబీరు, అదేవిధంగా రవిదాసు, అలాగే గురునానక్ వీళ్ళు నిర్గుణ శాఖకు చెందిన వాళ్ళు. సగుణ శాఖకు చెందిన వాళ్ళలో సూర్యదాసు, తులసీదాసు, మీరాబాయి వీళ్ళు ఉంటారు. అంటే అంబేద్కరైట్ సాహిత్యం గురించి అంబేద్కర్ గారి ఇన్స్పిరేషను ఈ సాహిత్యానికి ఏముంది అనే క్రమంలో మనం మాట్లాడుకుంటే అది కబీర్ దగ్గర నుంచి కూడా మొదలవుతుంది. అదేవిధంగా మరింకో చోట జయప్రకాష్ కర్దం అంటారు, కబ్ తక్ చలేగా ఏ జుల్మ్ ఔర్ సితమ్ కా సైలాబ్, ఏకు భాయి భూకా సోతా హై दूसरा खाना फेंकता है, मैं समता के राजपथ पर चलना चाहता हूँ ना पशुता का जंगल అంటాడు. ఎంతవరకు ఈ దుర్మార్గాలు అన్యాయాలు జరుగుతూ ఉంటాయో, ఒకడు అన్నం లేకుండా అలమటిస్తూ చనిపోతుంటాడు, ఉన్న సందర్భంలో ఇంకొకడు అన్నం పారేస్తుంటాడు. మరి మై సమతాకే రాజ్యపథ్ పర్, నేను సమత సమానత్వం ప్రవచించినటువంటి బుద్ధుడు సంచరించినటువంటి ఆ సమతా రాజ్యం వైపు నేను నడుస్తాను. నా పశుతాక జంగల్, పశువులు సంచరించేటువంటి అటవిక రాజ్యం ఈరోజు మనం చూస్తున్న సందర్భం కూడా గుర్తు చేసుకోవచ్చు. పశువు మాంసం తిన్నారని చెప్పి మనుషులను చంపుతున్న ఒక సంస్కృతిని ఈరోజు మనం చూస్తూ ఉన్నాం. నిజాలు మాట్లాడే పరిస్థితి ఈరోజు లేదు. మేధావుల గొంతు కూడా, మేధావుల గొంతునులు మీ ఏ సంఘం సమాజం బాగుపడదని చెప్పి అప్పుడు ఒక కాలంలో కవులు చెప్పిన సందర్భం ఉంది. కానీ ఈరోజు మేధావులు మాట్లాడే పరిస్థితి, ఆ సందర్భాలు మనం లేం. ఇప్పుడే మేడం అన్నట్లుగా హైదరాబాద్ సెంట్రల్ యూనివర్సిటీ మనం చూస్తున్నాం. ఇన్ని ఎకరాల పొలం ఇక్కడ అవసరమా, రియల్ ఎస్టేట్ ప్లాట్లు వేసుకుందామంటున్న సందర్భం రాజ్యం మాట్లాడుతుంది. మరి అక్కడి నుంచి మనం మాట్లాడుకుంటే అంబేద్కరైట్ సాహిత్యంలో అంబేద్కర్ గారి ఇన్స్పిరేషన్తో ఈరోజు మన సాహిత్యాన్ని చూసుకోవచ్చు. ఆ సందర్భంలోనే మా హిందీలో గొప్ప రచయిత అయినటువంటి కథా రచయిత అయినటువంటి ప్రేమ్చంద్ ఒక చోట అంటాడు, జిందగీ భర్ తన్ డాంఖనే కే లియే కోయి చీత్రా నై మిలే తో మరణ్ కే బాద్ నయా కఫన్ చాహియే కితనీ బురి రివాజ్ హై అంటాడు. వాడు జీవితాంతం బతకడానికి వాడికి గోచిపాత కూడా లేకుండా, బట్టలు లేకుండా బతికిన వాడికి చనిపోయిన రోజు వెంటనే ఒక కొత్తటి ఒక గుడ్డ వస్త్రం కప్పుతారు, కఫన్ అనే గుడ్డ కప్పుతారు, దాంతో తీసుకువెళ్ళాలంటారు. ఇది ఎలాంటి దుర్మార్గమైన ఆచారం అని చెప్పి అంటారు. ఇందాక మేడం చెప్పినట్టుగా నా అంబేద్కర్ దినచర్యలో రమాబాయి అంబేద్కర్ పుస్తకంలో కూడా రాసిన అనువాదం చేశాను. అంబేద్కర్ గారికి ఇష్టమైన కూడా గంగాధర్ చనిపోయినప్పుడు ఆ ఇంట్లో ఒక కొత్త వస్త్రాన్ని వేసే పరిస్థితి లేనప్పుడు ఆ మహాతల్లి తన చీర చెంగు చించి ఆ శవం మీద కప్పి శ్మశానానికి తీసుకెళ్ళిన సందర్భాన్ని చూస్తాం. అప్పుడు అంబేద్కర్ గారు కలనేల పర్యంతమే మాట్లాడతారు, ఇలాంటి పరిస్థితి ఏ నాయకుడికి రాకూడదు అని చెప్పి ఆయన మాట్లాడతారు. నా పిల్లలు ఆకలితో అలమటిస్తున్నారు, వైద్య సదుపాయాలు చనిపోతున్నారు, ఈ సందర్భంలో నేను గవర్నమెంట్ ఉద్యోగం చేసుకుంటే ఒక ఉద్యోగం చేసుకుంటే బాగుంటుంది కదా అని రమాబాయి మరణశయ్య మీద ఉన్న సందర్భంలో రమాబాయిని అడిగినప్పుడు, నీ 7 కోట్ల మంది, అప్పుడు 7 కోట్లే ఉన్నారు, ఇప్పుడు 25 కోట్లు ఉండొచ్చు, నీ 7 కోట్ల అంటరాని బిడ్డల ఆకలి ఎవరు తీరుస్తారు, వాళ్ళకి దారి ఎవరు చూపిస్తారు అని చెప్పి ఆ మహాతల్లి అన్న సందర్భం మనం చూస్తాం. అలాంటి దుర్మార్గమైన పరిస్థితిలో ఉదయం చలంగారు మాట్లాడినట్టుగా కొన్ని కులాలు అంటరానితనాన్ని అనుభవించకపోయినా వాళ్ళు అన్టచబుల్ కమ్యూనిటీస్ లిస్టులో ఉంటారు, ఆ రాజ్యాంగ ఫలాలు పొందుతూ ఉంటారు. కొంతమంది అంటే ఈరోజు సమాజంలో మతం అనేది ఎంత ప్రముఖమైన పాత్ర వహించిందో, ఆ మతంలో కూడా ఆ సమాజంలో కూడా పూజారి కమ్యూనిటీ ఉంటుంది, అదే అన్ని కులాల్లో ఉంటారు. ఆ పూజారి కమ్యూనిటీ ఎంత దుర్మార్గంగా తన కులాన్ని కూడా దోచుకుంటుందనే ఉదాహరణలు కూడా చాలా సందర్భాల్లో మనం చూస్తూ ఉంటాం. కాబట్టి చదువుకునే అవకాశం వాళ్ళకే ఉంటుందా పూజారి కమ్యూనిటీకి, ఎవరైతే దేవుడి పేరుతో చెప్తూ ఉంటారో వాళ్ళ దగ్గర ఉన్న వాళ్ళు మిగతా సమాజాన్ని పట్టించుకోవాల్సిన పరిస్థితి కూడా ఈరోజు సమాజంలో అవసరమవుతూ ఉంది. అనేక అస్తిత్వ ఉద్యమాలు వచ్చిన సందర్భంలో బాబాసాహెబ్ అంబేద్కర్ గారి ఆలోచనతో మనం ముందుకు వెళ్తే ఎన్నో ఉదాహరణలు మనం తీసుకోవచ్చు. మై భంగి హూ అనే మొదటి ఉర్దూ దళిత ఆత్మకథను అనువాదం చేశాను నేను, భంగిని అని. దాంట్లో దళితుల్లో ఇంకా దళితులు ఉన్నటువంటి భంగీలు సఫాయి కర్మచారి వాళ్ళ గురించి, మెహతర్ కమ్యూనిటీ గురించి భగవాన్ దాస్ చెప్తారు. మరి ఇంకొకటి జూఠన్ అని ఉంటుంది, అది హిందీలో మొదటి దళిత ఆత్మకథ, అది అనువాదం చేస్తున్నాను. ఆ అంబేద్కర్ గారి ఇన్స్పిరేషన్తో అంబేద్కర్ గారి తర్వాత సమతా సైనిక దళాలు, బుద్ధిస్ట్ సొసైటీ ఆఫ్ ఇండియా ఇలాంటి అనేక సంఘాలకి అనేక నాయకత్వం వహించి ఇంటర్నేషనల్గా పనిచేసినటువంటి భగవాన్ దాస్ గారు ఈ వాల్మీకి అనే పదంతో మా మెహతర్లకి మరి భంగీలకి రైలు కమ్యూనిటీకి ఎలాంటి సంబంధం లేదు, ఈ వాల్మీకి మాకు సంబంధం లేదని చెప్పి భగవాన్ దాస్ గారు మా భంగీలో మాట్లాడితే ఓంప్రకాష్ వాల్మీకి మరలా వాల్మీకి అనే పేరుతో ఇంకో కవి ముందుకు వస్తాడు. ఆయన ఒకవైపు దేశంలో వర్గం ఉంది, ఎర్ర జెండాలు ఉన్నాయని మాట్లాడిన దశలో కులము కూడా ఉంది, కులంలో అంటరానితనాన్ని అనుభవించిన వాడే మాట్లాడాలి, సమాజానికి నాయకత్వం వహించాలని అంబేద్కర్ మాట్లాడితే మళ్ళీ కులం వర్గం అని మాట్లాడేవాళ్ళు అదే దశలో మనము ఓంప్రకాష్ వాల్మీకిని కూడా చూస్తాం హిందీ సాహిత్యంలో. అంబేద్కర్ గారు నా ఆత్మకథ అని చెప్పి ఆయన తన గురించి మాజీ జన్మార్చిన చిత్రకథను రాసుకుంటారు. అది ఆత్మకథలకి అన్నిటికీ కూడా మరాఠీ కథా సాహిత్యానికి కూడా అదే ప్రారంభం కావచ్చు అనుకు చెప్పుకోవాలి. ఎందుకంటే తర్వాత దయాపవర్ రాశారు బలూత్ అని అన్టచబుల్గా. ఆ తర్వాత చాలా ఆత్మకథలు వచ్చాయి. సుశీల ఠాకూరే కూడా సికంజే కా దర్ద్ అని రాశారు నాగపూర్ నుంచి, అది ఉర్దూలో హిందీలో మొదటి ఉమెన్ ఆటోబయోగ్రఫీగా త్వరలో రాబోతుంది, అది చేస్తున్న వర్క్. అంటే ఈ విధంగా అంబేద్కర్ సాహిత్యానికి మనం హిందీలో తెలుగులో కూడా చాలా సాహిత్యం తీసుకొచ్చాం. మేము సెంట్రల్ యూనివర్సిటీలో రాముడు ఉన్నాడు ఇక్కడే, భంగ్య, శ్రీదేవి, మేమంతా సెంట్రల్ యూనివర్సిటీ చదువుకున్న వాళ్ళం. అనేక మూమెంట్స్లో గుండెడప్ప అనే ఒక పుస్తకాన్ని మేము తీసుకొచ్చాము. దళిత మేనిఫెస్టో అని చెప్పి సలంద్ర అనే ఒక నక్సలైట్ కవిత్వాన్ని, ఇదే దళితులకు మేనిఫెస్టో, మీ నుదిటి రాతని సిస్టమ్ మతం ఎట్లా మాట్లాడుతుందో అట్లానే మీ కర్మ ఇదే మేనిఫెస్టో అని చెప్పి ఒక నక్సలైట్ రాస్తే, నక్సలైట్ మాకెట్లా రాస్తాడు అంటరాని కులాలకి, మేము దళిత మేనిఫెస్టో మాది కాదు, మేము గుండెనే డబ్బుగా మోగిస్తాము అని చెప్పి గుండె డబ్బు అనే పుస్తకాన్ని మేము తీసుకొచ్చాము. నాగార్జున యూనివర్సిటీకి ఫార్మర్ వీసీకి ఉన్న రాజశేఖర్ గారు, సుందరరాజు వీళ్ళంతా దాని సంపాదకులుగా ఉన్నారు. అంతా దాంట్లో కవిత్వం రాస్తున్నాం. అదే గుండె డబ్బు పేరుతో గుండె డబ్బు కనుక తెలంగాణ యూనివర్సిటీ డీన్గా ఉన్నాడు. ఆ పుస్తకం పేరు పెట్టుకుని ఆయన ముందుకు వచ్చాడు, కవిత్వం ఉంది దాంట్లో. ఈ విధంగా అంబేద్కర్ గారి సాహిత్యం, కథా సాహిత్యం, అదే దాంట్లో అనేక రకాలుగా మనం చూసుకుంటూ ముందుకు వెళ్ళే పరిస్థితి మనకు కనిపిస్తుంది. వే చిహ్న్ అనే ఒక కవితలో నేను రాసుకున్న దాంట్లో, దునియాకే నక్షే మే నికల్ కర్ రా రహా హై వహ్ అంబేద్కర్, भूगोल को अंगूठे पर फिरा करते हुए वह तर्जनी రేఖా ఖీంచ్ రహీ హై. చూపుడు వేలు ఈ సమాజానికి ఒక గీత గీస్తూ ఉంది. ఈ గీత అవతల ఆ గీత భగవద్గీత కావచ్చు, ఇంకో కులగీత కావచ్చు, దీనికి సరైన గీత చూపుడు వేలుతో బాబాసాహెబ్ అంబేద్కర్ చెప్తున్నారని మాట్లాడుకుంటాం. అదేవిధంగా ఓంప్రకాష్ మెహర్ అనే ఒక కవి మాట్లాడతారు, నీ అంత ఎత్తు ఎదుగుతానని అనలేదు, నువ్వు నాకు కావాలి అని అనలేదు, ఓ మూల తలదాచుకునేందుకు ఇంటి కప్పును అడిగాను, నీ గొప్పదనాన్ని అడగలేదు, గుండె ధైర్యాన్ని అడగలేదు, విశాలమైన నీ వల్లకాటిని అడగలేదు, నన్ను నేను పాతుకునేందుకు 2 గజాల నేలనే అడిగాను అని చెప్పి ఒక అంటరాని కులానికి సంబంధించినటువంటి ఒక ఆత్మ వాడి బాధని చెప్పుకుంటాడు. అదేవిధంగా లక్ష్మీపేట సందర్భంలో లక్ష్మీపేట అక్కడ కారంచేడులో పంచభూతాలు నీళ్లు తీసుకుని హక్కు లేదని మాట్లాడితే చుండూరులో నేను ఆత్మగౌరవంతో బ్రతుకుతానని చెప్పి సినిమా హాల్లో కూర్చున్నందుకు వాడిని చంపేసిన పరిస్థితి తీసుకొస్తే లక్ష్మీపేటకు వచ్చేసరికి లక్ష్మీపేటలో ఈరోజు ఆధిపత్య కులాలు చెప్పుకున్న ఆ కులాల తర్వాత కులం సగం బీసీ సగం వచ్చుకున్నటువంటి ఆ కమ్యూనిటీ వాళ్ళు 8 మందిని ఈ అంటరాని కులాలు మాలలకి వీళ్ళు పొలం ఎందుకు ఉండాలి, భూమి మీద హక్కు ఎందుకు ఉండాలి అని చెప్పి వాళ్ళని చంపిన సందర్భంలో ఆ లక్ష్మీపేట మీద వర్ణమాలను కవిత రాస్తున్నాను. దాంట్లో 2 లైన్లు ఉంటాయి. లక్ష్మీపేట ఏమైందే తల్లి నీకు 56 అక్షరాల 61 కులాల వర్ణమాలలో నీ 4 అక్షరాలు కలగలిసాయా. ఫ్రెంచి విప్లవం బాష్లీ జైలును కూల్చినట్లు నాడు బాబాసాహెబ్ మనుస్మృతిని తగలబెట్టినట్లు నేటి వర్ణధర్మాన్ని ధ్వంసం చేయని నేర ఫలితమే ఇది. మాకంటూ ఓ మతం ఓ మాతృదేశం లేదన్న గొంతుకల్ని అనగదొక్కిన కారణమే ఇది. పిడికడు ఉప్పు మహోద్యమమైంది, దోషుడు నీళ్లు మహత్ ఉద్యమమయ్యాయి, మరి గజం నేల మారణకాండనెందుకు రచించింది అని చెప్పి దాని గురించి మాట్లాడుకున్న సందర్భం. భగవాన్ దాస్ ఒక సందర్భంలో మాట్లాడతారు. అంబేద్కరిస్ట్ రచయిత భగవాన్ దాస్, హిందూ మతంలో కులం ఒక సత్యం, అదే వాళ్ళ సమాజం, అదే వాళ్ళ ప్రపంచం. బాబాసాహెబ్ అంబేద్కర్ మాటల్లో అది ఒక కలుగు, ఎలుకలు ఉండే బొరియా. సాధారణ హిందువుకు అతను బ్రాహ్మణుడైనా, రెల్లైనా, మాలైనా, మాదిగైనా అతనికి ఒక చిన్న ప్రపంచం ఉంటుంది. అదే అతని దేశం, అదే అతని మతం, అదే అతనికి అన్నీ. అతను దాని గురించి ఆలోచిస్తుంటాడు, కులానికి వ్యతిరేకంగా ఉపన్యాసాలు ఇస్తుంటాడు, వ్యాసాలు రాస్తుంటాడు, కానీ కులాన్ని వదలలేడు. ఈ కారణంగానే కుల వ్యవస్థ స్థిరపడిపోతుంది. కులం ఉన్నంత వరకు కుల వ్యవస్థ బానిస సంఖ్యల నుండి విముక్తి పొందేందుకు విప్లవాత్మకమైన అడుగు ముందుకు వేయలేము అని చెప్పి చెప్తారు. ఈ విధంగా మనం చాలా సందర్భాల్లో మనం చూసుకుంటే, అదేవిధంగా ఓంప్రకాష్ వాల్మీకి ఒక చోట నీ మూగ పదాలు ద్రగలే బూడిదై మంటలవుతున్నాయి, నీ వాసన, నీ నాదం, నీ భయం నా గాలులన్నింటిలోనూ తరాల దీపమై మండుతున్నాయి అంటారు. శివసాగర్ నడుస్తున్న చరిత్రలో కవితలో శంభుకుడు పెదాల మీద చిరునవ్వుతో రాముని వధిస్తున్నాడు, ఏకలవ్యుడు ద్రోణుని బొటనవేలును గొడ్డలతో నరుకుతున్నాడు, బలి తన చిరు పాదాలతో వామనుణ్ణి పాతాళానికి తొక్కేస్తున్నాడు. ఓహో, ఇప్పుడు నడుస్తున్న చరిత్ర పరమ చండాల చరిత్ర అని చెప్పి చిక్కనవుతున్న పాటల్లో శివసాగర్ రాస్తాడు. అదేవిధంగా శంభుకుడు అనే కవితలో కంవల్ భారత్ అనే హిందీ కవయిత్రి మాట్లాడతారు. శంభుకా నీ చరిత్ర నిజం, రాజతంత్రాన పుట్టిన అనేక దళిత చైతన్యాల ప్రతీకవి, అందుకే రాముడు నిన్ను చంపాడు. నీ హత్య దళిత చైతన్య హత్య, స్వేచ్ఛ, సమానత, మానవతల హత్య. కానీ శంభుక, నేడు కూడా నీవు నిజం, సమాజం మార్పు పొరలో నేడు కూడా నీవు ప్రాణాలు అర్పిస్తున్నావు అని చెప్పి మాట్లాడతారు. అదేవిధంగా మరాఠీ కవిత్వంలో నామదేవ్ డస్సాల్, అదేవిధంగా అరుణ్ కాంబ్లే లాంటి వాళ్ళు చాలా అద్భుతమైన సాహిత్యాన్ని తీసుకొచ్చారు. వాళ్ళది ఒకటి కవిత చెప్పి నేను ముగిస్తాను. అంటే తెలుగులో అంత బలమైన కవులు ఇప్పుడు రాస్తున్నారు, కానీ నామదేవ్ డస్సాల్, అరుణ్ కాంబ్లే లాంటి వాళ్ళు ఆ ముందే తమ సాహిత్యాన్ని రాశారు. దయాపవర్ ఒక చోట నాడు ఖాండవ వనాన్ని తగులుపెట్టిన చెయ్యి నేడు కూడా కుయుక్తులతో అగ్నికాండ రచిస్తుంది, అడవిలోని నెత్తుడ తడిసిన క్రూర జంతువుల నాలుకల్లా నువ్వు పెట్టిన మంట ఆకాశమంతా నిండిపోయింది, కట్టెల్లి పేల్చినట్టు ఒకరిపై ఒకరిని పెట్టి 42 మందికి చితులు పేర్చావు, తలకొరువి పెట్టావు, అన్యం పుణ్యం వెరుగు నీ పసిపిల్లల్ని కాలుస్తుంటే నీ కనురెప్పలకు సిగ్గువేయలేదా, కన్నీటి చుక్క కాదు కదా, కనీసం నీ పెదవి కూడా కదపలేదు అని చెప్పి దయాపవర్ ప్రశ్నిస్తాడు. ఇంకో చోట గుజరాతీ కవి, మనం శతాబ్దాలుగా రాళ్ల కింద కప్పబడిపోయాము, జీవన పర్యంతము కన్నీళ్ల పర్వతాలమయ్యాము, నేడు మనం అస్థిపంజరాల్లా చలనరహితంగా పడి ఉన్నాము, మన నినాదాలు ఈ శవాల గుట్టల కింద అణిగిపోయాయి, మనం పాతిపెట్టబడిన అదృష్టాన్ని సాహసమనే గడ్డపారతో తవ్వి ఆకాశంలో నిలబెట్టాలి అని చెప్పి అంటారు. నిన్నటిదాకా దయాపవర్ మరో చోట, నిన్నటిదాకా పారిన నీళ్ళన్నీ మురికిగా ఉన్నాయి, అమూల్యమైన రేపటిని ఎలా రక్షించాలి, చూస్తుండగానే దావాలనం ఆవహించింది, ఒంటరి వృక్షం ఎప్పటి వరకు నిలబడుతుంది, భయంకరమైన శబ్దంతో తుపాకీ తోటాలు పలకరిస్తున్నాయి, తీక్ష్ణమైన అగ్నిజ్వాలలు తలుపు తడుతున్నాయి, ఏనుగులా ఎంతసేపు నిలబడాలి, మేము నవ్వుతూనే చనిపోవాలా అంటాడు. అర్జున్ డాంగ్లే ఇంకో చోట అంటాడు, ఆకాశమంతటా అలుముకున్న వేదనల వలయంలో నన్ను ఇంతకాలం నన్ను ఎంతకాలం బందీని చేస్తావు? నా ప్రశ్నల తోటాలు రోజురోజుకి పెరుగుతున్నాయి. నన్ను రక్షించేందుకు ఏ ప్రవక్త నా దరి చేరలేదు. ఇక్కడి పాలకులు అప్పుడప్పుడు నన్ను అలవాటుగా గుర్తు చేసుకుంటుంటారు. కానీ నేను స్పష్టంగా చెబుతున్నాను, నేను నిరాశపడలేదు. సమస్యల వలయాన్ని నేను దాటుతున్నాను. ఆకాశం అంతటా మండే జ్వాలలతో కూడిన వేదనల నుండి నేను విముక్తినయ్యాను. ఒక మయమైన మహోదయాన్ని కలగంటున్నాను అంటాడు. ఆ విధంగా అంబేద్కర్ గారి సాహిత్యం మరాఠీ, హిందీ, తెలుగు, ఈ విధంగా తమిళ్, మలయాళం ఇట్లాంటి దళిత సాహిత్యానికి ఒక బేస్ ఏర్పడుతూ వచ్చింది. అంబేద్కర్ గారి ఆలోచనలతో వచ్చిన ఈ సాహిత్యాన్ని ఇంకా కొంచెం ముందుకు తీసుకువెళ్తున్న దశలో మళ్ళీ మనం ప్రశ్నించుకుంటూ బాబాసాహెబ్ బాటలు నడవాల్సిన అవసరం ఉంది. ఆ సందర్భంగా దీన్ని ఫుల్ పేపర్ తర్వాత నేను ప్రజెంట్ చేస్తాను. ఈ అవకాశం ఇచ్చిన అక్కగారు సుధారాణి గారికి, బీసీ చక్రపాణి గారికి, ఈ యూనివర్సిటీ ఒక గొప్ప కార్యక్రమాన్ని తీసుకొని ఈ రెండు రాష్ట్రాల్లో ఒక మార్గం చూపించింది. ఆ క్రమంలో ఇంకొంచెం ముందుకు వెళ్లాల్సిన అవసరాన్ని తెలియజేస్తూ ముగిస్తున్నా. జై భీమ్.
Dr. Sowjanya Tamalapakula is an associate professor at Woxsen University specializing in gender studies, cinema and media. Her research explores choice-based marriage, queer politics, body politics, fatness and gender, bioethics, narratology, Indian cinema and semiotics. Dr. Tamalapakula has published extensively in national and international journals on gender, sexuality, caste, queerness, media, and the sociology of religion. Beyond academia, she is a keen public intellectual, engaging wider audiences through her writings in The Wire, The News Minute, Deccan Chronicle, Asian Age, and Counter Currents. Her work critically examines contemporary social issues, translating complex ideas into accessible and thought-provoking narratives. So, her opted the topic in this program is Caste and Gender Theoretical Framework of Intersectionality. Thank you.
So, I would like to present on revisiting legal theory from an intersectional perspective. Am I loud enough, sir? Oh, yeah. So I would like to look at three important aspects of Indian law that are very pertinent to Dalits. So one is honor killings. In this context, I'm going to discuss Tamil Nadu honor killings. And then rape and sexual violence, as in India, largely rape and sexual violence are pertinent to or inherent to caste system. So I'm going to look at intersectionalities, how they operate in the laws related to rape and sexual violence. And I'm also looking at SC/ST atrocities if the time permits. Okay, so often people see Tamil Nadu context and Tamil Nadu public realm as, I won't say casteless, but a Dravidian land and land of Piriya. And but this is one of the states where, similar to Andhra Pradesh, highest number of caste killings take place. But here, the honor killings in southern parts of Tamil Nadu, probably highest number of honor killings take place, as much as we have the reported cases and we have unreported cases, and almost every day at least one news which means it is reported by the news media, we hear that at least one young man has been killed for the reason of marrying a caste Hindu woman. And I'll also tell you why I had to say caste Hindu woman. And I'm not saying it is upper caste, but caste Hindu. And another important aspect of it is that, as we know, honor killings, Dalits actually call it as dishonor killings because there is no honor to it. And often some Dalits also call it as caste killings, but as a nomenclature, I continue to use honor killings. So between 2014 and 2024, a total number of 59 cases of honor killings were documented by the Evidence. Evidence is a Madurai-based NGO. According to this, only 6 cases have progressed to the court trials, and the images are very strongly invocated in this particular film with the railway tracks. The railway tracks where the Dalit young men are killed, and railway tracks are also where the dog, a very important character in the film is also killed. Okay, so I am looking at 3 important cases which also made made a lot of debate. On 11th July 2013, a 19-year-old man, Dalit man Illavarsan, was found dead near railway tracks in Dharmapuri, Tamil Nadu, following a series of caste-related violent incidents triggered by his marriage to Divya, a woman from the intermediate Vaniyar caste. And Divya and Illavarsan had fallen in love in 2011 and married in October 2012, despite the significant opposition from Divya's caste. So also another case which happened in 2012 is this is Divya's case, and so after that her mother has gone to the court. Like here, one thing, even Telugu cinema, the recent Telugu cinema, court has very evidently used the law in order to punish the Dalits or punish lower caste. Okay, so in this context is a boy from the washerwoman caste, which is Chakali community, where the law has been used. Okay, so here, more than the Dalits who are killed, it is the upper caste and the caste Hindus who are using the law very effectively, efficiently, in order to curb the consensual relationships. In this case, both the boy and the girl, I mean, I'm just using the terms boy and the girl, but the man and the woman, both of them are majors, but the mother has gone to file a petition, habeas corpus, to present Divya before the court. Okay, so imagine a mother who might not have been very well educated, because this is intermediate caste, which is not, huge landholders, but they have lands. Okay, and they are also known as dominant caste. M.N. Srinivas uses the term dominant caste because due to land holdings, these OBC, MBC, BC communities also have have a lot of power in the village spaces where they often indulge in caste killings of Dalits. So then she was presented before the court, and the mother, so the woman came to know that the father committed suicide, unable to show his face in his community because of the daughter's marriage with another caste, and particularly Dalit caste man. And after that, Divya, as a symbolic gesture, removed her tali and said that Illavarsan is not her husband anymore, and went with the mother. And after a couple of days, that you see, Illavarsan's body was found near the railway tracks. He was killed, allegedly killed, and the case has, I think, yet to be resolved. Okay. So another important cases. So 2015, Gokul Raj, 21-year-old Dalit engineering graduate in electronics and communications, was abducted, and then Gokul Raj was found because he was found in around the temple with Swati, a caste Hindu woman again, and so actually in this case there is no clarity about whether it is love or friendship, because though I would not like to reify what is friendship, desire and love, here it is a suspicion that both may like each other, and with that suspicion he was abducted by a group of men and then finally killed. Okay, so in this case is also this case is actually very unique from other cases, because in this case the person who killed was not any family member of the woman, but a leader of the caste group. Okay, so they also have certain caste groups, just as in imitation of how Dalits organize, there are also upper caste who organize. Okay, in Chunduru case, for instance, Sarvajanobhyadaya Samiti is something like upper caste consolidation. Similarly, here they have also caste groups. Then Kaushalya was taken back to her home, and again as a symbolic ritual they have removed her tali and given her a bath to get rid of the defilement that was caused by marrying a Dalit man. And so here I would like to look at how the consolidation of on the one hand we speak about constitutional morality and caste assertions, particularly caste assertion is supposed to be against the oppression, but you also see caste assertion here against the Dalits. Okay, so Tevar, Kaundar, Naikars, Nadars and Vaniyars have dominance in different pockets of Tamil society. In fact, any Dalit mobilization is met with resistance from dominant caste who claim victimhood in response to perceived casteism of Dalits. So when Dalits enter into the colleges, they consider that as the casteism of Dalits, and Dalits are discriminating the caste Hindus. Okay, so this led to consolidation of caste Hindus against Dalits under banners like Tevar Protections Front or Non-Dalit Common People's Association. Okay, so this Common People's Association consists of anybody but not Dalits. So non-Dalit. So in the sense, Dalit is not a common person or constitutes people. So in Gokulraj's murder case, the prime accused Yuvraj is not the family member, as I mentioned, that he is the caste leader. The caste associations act as custodians of caste, not only prohibit intimate relations between Dalit men and OBC, MBC, BC caste women, but also impose severe penalties on even friendships and social interactions between the caste Hindu women and the Dalit men. So interestingly, one of the very well-renowned sociologists, Satish Deshpande, talks about how the emergence of in post-1990s with the Mandal Commission, the emergence of the general category. Okay, we also call them as open category, or people who do not have reservations, and the people who have reservations have emerged as two distinct groups. But are these really only two distinct groups? We see OBC community using reservations, but at the same time also using the benefits of the community as non-untouchables. They are not untouchables, so therefore they also use the caste and cultural superiority only in relation to Dalits, not in relation to upper caste. In relation to upper caste, they become lower caste, but in relation to Dalits, they become upper caste. So therefore, they also use caste, they at the same time also use the reservations, which are also largely fought by Dalits for OBCs in both post-Mandal contexts. Okay, so then looking at some of the aspects of this caste in Tamil Nadu, you see I don't know exactly what to cover. So caste in Tamil Nadu is marked by unique dynamics, as Dravidian politics has significantly intensified disparities between non-Brahmin intermediate caste groups and with substantial land holdings and the landless outcasts who are Dalits. So we also see Mukkulattur, collectively known as Tevar, Agamudayar, Kallar, Maravar belong to OBC, MBC, even DNC categories. However, anti-Brahmin movement of E.V. Ramaswamy Periyar led to the most Brahmins settling in the English-speaking countries and even to the cities of in India, Bangalore, Chennai and all. So the caste clashes occur today primarily between intermediate castes who are known as MBCs and OBCs and Dalits. Okay, so the dominant caste constructs the emergence of Dalit masculinities in educated college-going Dalit men as the threat to the sexual purity of caste Hindu women. Often, women are the boundaries between the castes, and in village spaces where the non-Brahmin caste controlled the most of the land, had a significant numerical strength, not only dominated the local affairs but commanded the respect and emerged as powerful castes. Okay, so this is largely the dynamics of caste. And why legal? Like, I'll just try to, this image is from Court, the film Court, which is Telugu. So, all of us, see, there is a constitutional morality and the legal provisions for Dalits, like SC/ST atrocities. Just as in case, as we see, domestic violence is always known to be misused but not used. Okay, similarly, SC/ST atrocities is known to be misused. But imagine, Chunduru case has not been successfully, ended, and nor the Khairlanji case was considered to be SC/ST atrocities, then what else is actually SC/ST atrocities? So therefore but whereas upper castes are using legislation for various reasons. For instance, why they have to actually go to the court and fight. That, for instance, if they put a case of, and sometimes, in court what happens, the 17 years, 8 months old girl was in love with 19-year-old boy, which is a consensual relationship. But because those 4 months are not crossed, so the upper caste parents effectively use the POXO case on the Dalit boy. So in Tamil Nadu, most cases happen like that. So imagine, we have, suppose 8th grader and 9th grader falls in love. But by the time they finish the intermediate or the plus 2, it's also known as 12th class, the boy becomes the criminal. Okay, so they may be in love with since childhood, but that 1 year is what, 1 year, not just even 1 year, but 24 hours. Just that one day makes the boy a criminal. And then in habeas corpus, when you put an habeas corpus, you are asking the body or the, dead or alive to be presented in the court. So by doing all this, the upper caste parents are trying to prove that the agency doesn't lie in the girl. So if the agency doesn't lie in the girl becomes the victim. If the girl is the victim, then in the film quote, the character of Mangapati very clearly says, once after we win the case, we prove them that our child was innocent and she is child, then we can regain the purity of the caste. Okay, so that has to be proved in the court. And then the court is the benchmark where you need to prove that the girl is, still pure, and the girl's purity is nothing but the purity of the caste. Okay, so when it comes to sexual violence, we have I'll try to, because I have 2 minutes time, I'll try to give a gist of what I'm trying to present. So we have certain landmark cases. One of the landmark cases that happened in 1972 is Mathura's rape case, which is an Adivasi woman who was raped by 2 policemen in the police station of Bombay. That is the first case. And the second case is 1992, another landmark case of a lower caste woman. She belongs to Kumhar caste. Kumhar is a potter caste, okay, those who make pots. You can say Kummara. Okay, so the caste woman was raped by slightly, more superior and landowning OBC caste. Okay, so this is the second important case. And we also have seen Disha and Nirbhaya and Hathras and Khairlanji. So in Khairlanji, a Dalit woman and her 3 children, okay, girl child and 2 sons, were raped and lynched, and their bodies were disposed in 2006. So in all these cases, if we see caste-based sexual violence. So in the first case of 1972, Mathura's rape case, the law judiciary itself, the judge said that there are no evident marks on her body of resisting the rape, so therefore rape didn't happen. And the second point, notably, was that this woman is already accustomed to sexual intercourse, so therefore rape cannot be called as rape. Okay, in the second case of Bhavri Devi case, the judge pronounced saying that upper caste men don't even touch a Dalit woman or a lower caste woman, let alone the rape there is a possibility of rape taking place. Okay, so in all these cases, caste has played an important role. And we also see Nirbhaya. Nirbhaya is one case where all of them were executed. Okay, and at the same time, you also see, women's movements happened in all other cases, like Mathura rape case and the Bhavri Devi's rape case. But in both cases, the accused were never punished. And today, Bhavri Devi's case is the landmark case which led to Vishaka guidelines, which prevent the sexual harassment at workplace. Right? But these guidelines, which came from the case where the caste played an important role, there is no caste aspect captured by Vishaka guidelines. So there was no revisiting of these guidelines by any feminist movement. Okay, and when it comes to Nirbhaya and Disha in Hyderabad, which most of you might have, also seen, the most of the success or whatever you want to call it. So it is not just the judicial actors that played a role. The role was actually played by the narrative that came around it, and the narrative was constructed by media that is representing the general public, like Common People's Association, that is the upper caste, middle class, urban people. So this narrative played an important role, that in Disha's case, that the police have gone to the extent of extrajudicial killings, and in Nirbhaya's case, they went to they could actually make sure that all of them are executed. In the sense, death sentence was given. Whereas you do not see any punishment in all these cases I mentioned, including the case of Khair Lanji, on which Anand Teltumde has written a book on. Very small, but very vibrantly written on the very descriptive aspects of it is disturbing. You can see that work. So in all these cases, none of the culprits were ever punished. Okay, so these are the intersectionalities that play out even in judiciary. So with that, I'll stop. So thanks. So sorry for taking.
She is an Indian author, columnist, intersectional feminist, Ambedkarite, and social activist based in Chennai, Tamil Nadu. Hailing from the working class community of North Madras, she is a prominent voice in Dalit literature and activism. Lawrence identifies as a Dalit Christian writer and is known for her work advocating for marginalized communities, focusing on issues such as caste-based violence, gender justice, human rights, and the empowerment of oppressed groups. She has authored 3 books in Tamil, which explore themes of feminism, subaltern culture, and social justice. Her writing extends to columns in both Tamil and English publications, including a notable 72-week run of her column in the Tamil magazine Kumudam. So Madam is going to give speech on caste, class and gender, Dr. B.R.Ambedkar's pioneering framework of intersectionality in social justice movement. Thank you.
Jai Bhim. Jai Bhim. Okay, I'm really glad that Sridevi ma'am invited me for this talk, and to all the people who spoke before me, thank you so much, and all the people who are listening, thanks for your patience. I know your stomachs must be gurgling, but still. And especially to Chalam sir, he spoke wonderfully well. I was a Periyar fangirl. Okay, I am a Dalit. I belong to the working class. What they tell, it's called Cheri. Cheri is where Dalits live, right? So the Dalits, we live in a Cheri. It's a separate locality, like colonies, So I come from there, and we have a great fanboying thing for Dravidian politicians, right? So they always say, you know what, Karunanidhi is the reason you got voting rights, and they'll say Stalin is the reason you got this right, or Stalin's unborn child is responsible for your rights. And then I met my husband, who's also a Dalit, a lawyer, and in Madras High Court, when he said, you know what, you're so ungrateful. He said, you're so ungrateful to Baba Sahib Ambedkar. And I was shocked. So he said, no, because he said, a Dalit man, I'm grateful to him, but as a Dalit woman, you should be more grateful to him than any other person. And then he taught me. We went to the beach, and there he used to sit and teach me Constitution, Ambedkar volumes, everything. I think, as Ambedkar says, a husband and wife, they should be friends more than, anything else. I think that Ambedkarite value we have put in our love and marriage. And that's why it's very healthy, I feel. So, when I just went back, because when somebody asks me as a feminist, they'll be asking me, who's your, famous feminist? Then we'll say Simone de Beauvoir, we get you see white women, or I'll say someone from I like from Bangladesh. I like the writer Taslima Nasreen and Nina Simone or Maya Angelou. I never looked up to people in my own country who fought for me, who dehumanized themselves, who went to the depths of hell to give me that small opportunity, which I never got in my life. And that, and when I say about this, then a lot of people come and say, okay, then you have Indian role models. Yes, I do have Indian women role models. But at the same time, there's another question which comes, can men be feminist? And they say, obviously, yes. But none of them in the history, the past 100 years, 130 years, never been like Ambedkar. The man who's a true feminist, the only political leader. And there is a paper which I wrote which says, Babasaheb Ambedkar, the architect of modern feminism in India. Because he didn't fight for the rights what women were already fighting for, but he also imbibed a sense of thought, idea of a futuristic feminism. That too in 1920s. So I'm not going to talk about everything, but so the whole country was fighting for independence. यहाँ पे गांधी जा रहा है, वहाँ पे तिलक जा रहा है. Everybody were like freedom, right? Even today, freedom, the fight for freedom, the fight for independence is considered a very important fight. Yes, even school children will get very energetic about it. But there was a man in that time who was fighting for, liberation from the caste system for Dalits, and then he was fighting for women's movement. He was fighting for women's liberation. I could use my talent, my potential, whatever I learned in abroad, in US or UK, I'm going to bring it back to my country and I'm going to emancipate my people, and let me do it at this time. I don't mind. Imagine the pressure the man went through. Even now we can't talk rights, right? Even now. 1920s, imagine. So Ambedkar recognized that annihilation of caste is feminism. Annihilation of caste is feminism. When I tell you this, you'll ask me, he said, yes. Because the crux of caste lies in the uterus of a woman. Sowjanya said, why women are killed? Why they are killed? Because when the blood mixes, when a Dalit, when a Brahmin woman or a counter woman or anybody, she has an intercourse with a Dalit boy. Because caste lies in the purity. Purity of the caste system lies in the child. That's what Manu Shastra says. The father and the mother has to be of the same caste so that the child will belong to the same caste. So the progeny will continue for generation. Only then the caste system will sustain itself. If there is a mixing which happens, that caste is gone. Okay? See, there is a confusion. When the father is one caste, mother is one caste, even they say, they'll give the father's caste or mother's caste, people will not accept that caste of the child. Say, intercaste, I don't know what you are. Which is a good confusion. It might feel like a good confusion, but it's just a good confusion. So, whole Shastras was against women. Why? Because when she goes out, she will fall in love with another man, she will have intercourse with that man, have intercourse, or she'll fall in love, she'll marry a Dalit man. That's why she was called impure based on the menstruation she was kept inside. That's why she was not given education. That's why she was not given money. Because education means going out, career means going out, everything is going out. And what is a good woman according to the Shastra? One who stays inside the house. Because my caste will be protected if you're inside. So a lot of women will say, oh, my father protects me a lot. He drops me in the college, he picks me up. He's making sure that you don't go with someone else. I'm saying in most of the cases in dominant caste, that's what happened. This protection is not out of love, but this protection is out of love and lust for their caste, not for the child. Because like Pranav's father-in-law, right? He can go ahead and kill. What kind of a love was that you can go ahead and kill your own child? But Ambedkar, he loved the women born out of different families. He loved everyone. He said, okay. He said, if I'm going to talk about caste, then I have to talk about women's liberation. And then he categorizes the women. He has the Dalit woman. He has the upper caste, dominant caste woman. He knows the difference. See, whenever I go to, any place, I say, don't talk about menstruation taboo to me. As a Dalit woman, I do not have menstruation taboo. But I will fight for you. I'll fight for your cause. Okay? A child was made sit outside, in Tamil Nadu because she was menstruating outside the school. I will support the cause. I will support a Brahmin woman. I will do that. But I have a more liberal life. Dalits have a very liberal life. a widow could remarry, right? Choosing a husband was easy. Dalits have very liberal sexual life. Everything is cool when it comes to Dalit women. But with Brahmin women, they are the most oppressed because they had to shave their head. They have to jump into the fire pit when husband died. Why Sati came into practice? Because if she is alone, Manusmriti again says, if she is alone, she will, go ahead and have sex with another, who will, she'll be immoral according to them. So that's the reason they want to have, be endogamy to be intact. They want the woman to jump in the fire pit. So they have all those things. They can't go out, they can't study, they can't. What we have is caste and oppression. We have lack of access. Like my father will let me go study, but do I have a school to study? Do I have a resource? That is what is problem to me. Accessing resource is problem to me. For them, leading a dignified life is a problem. Inside their own family. The most undignified thing is when your family, you don't have democracy. Indian families is the place where you don't have democracy at all. India we call democracy. But in a family, mostly upper caste and dominant caste, women do not have voice and agency. So what Ambedkar proposes is 4 things. Education, inheritance rights, marriage agency, bodily autonomy. My mind was blown off, to be honest, when I found out what Ambedkar did for all these 4 things, especially bodily autonomy. See, first thing is inheritance of wealth, everything. If you give that to a Brahmin woman or a woman from upper caste, it is easier for them to have wealth and to come out of a oppressed system, right? Oppressing system. And then education is needed for both Dalit and non-Dalit women, because education gives you awareness. What we are doing right now is we are creating awareness, right? And then you have marriage. To choose who to marry or not, at what age to marry. Women still don't have that agency, but Ambedkar spoke for this, campaigned for this in 1920s. And then comes bodily autonomy, where Ambedkar campaigned for contraceptions. It's a very funny incident when Marie Stopes and Margaret Sanger, 2 people who were like suffragist movement, they also had bodily autonomy movements in US. So these 2 women come to India in 1920s thinking that, we can do contraception campaign. So they go to Gandhi. And Gandhi is, no way. And he says, family is divine, family is this, family is that. 2 people have to separate themselves. No need of contraception. Don't disrespect women. They get very paralyzed because they thought Gandhi was a liberal. From America, that's what has been taught to them. Then they went to Nehru. Nehru accepted it, and Rabindranath Tagore, they both accepted, but they didn't focus their time on that. They went to Ambedkar, and they also told him what Gandhi has said. So Ambedkar laughed and he said, Gandhi is a fool. And he said, 2 people in love cannot be, without touching each other. And love cannot be restrained only to creating children. And he said, for the country to develop, it's important for women to have bodily autonomy. So contraception and family planning is a must. And he campaigned for it in 1920. That's the difference between people thinking for Dalits and thinking as a Dalit, thinking for women and doing as women. So Ambedkar, he didn't have any gender norms. Right? So I would say Ambedkar, not a man, not a woman. Ambedkar was this universal soul which thought about everything. He thought about the forest, he thought about the rivers, he thought about everything. And the most, he gave his heart to the women. So it's very important that women should, respect Ambedkar, the amount of sacrifice and the contribution the man had made for this country. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Last speech. It's so vibrant and we enjoyed it. Shalin, really good presentation. And one more just an addition for her, 42 to 46. He was a Viceroy's Executive Council member. he brought several legislation which we are talking about, and the most important amendments to the existing laws of maternity benefit acts and workers, and reducing the working hours from 14 to 8 hours, which we are enjoying today in the offices. It's a contribution of Ambedkar. And more importantly, he has analyzed every single aspect of women. He used to address the gatherings saying that, if the husband is drunk and comes home, you should, not give the food, and tell him on his face that he should have some responsibility. So all these things, like, as she said, no hurry in marrying at a young age, and wife and husband, women should lead the movement. The progress of a community depends on the progress achieved by the women. This is a popular saying of Baba Saheb Ambedkar. So reclaiming the feminist aspect of Ambedkar is a very, very important aspect in the contemporary world. And you did it very well, Shalin. Thank you so much. And I request, now we come to the end of this thing. Felicitation to the guest speakers.
On behalf of the organizing committee and grade, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to each one of you for making this roundtable conference on Dr. B.R.Ambedkar and intersectionality in Indian society a resounding success. First and foremost, I express our deepest appreciation to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Ganta Chakrapani Garu, for taking the initiative to organize various programs as part of the Social Empowerment Fest, including this roundtable conference. We are immensely grateful to our chief guest today, Professor K.S. Chalam Garu, for his thought-provoking lecture, which set the tone for the conference with a compelling exploration of Dr. Ambedkar's legacy as a champion of social justice and his relevance in addressing intersectional challenges today. Sir, your words have ignited a spark for further reflection and action. I would like to sincerely thank our esteemed panelist, Professor Bhukya, for his insights on the Adivasi question and Ambedkar, Professor Gummadi Sridevi Garu on her discussion on intersectionality and labor market discrimination, Professor Sreepati Ramudu for his presentation on constitutional and social intersectionality, Professor G.V. Ratnakar for exploring Ambedkarite literature and intersectionality, Dr.Sowjanya Tamalapakula for articulating the caste and gender theoretical framework of intersectionality, and Dr. Shalini Maria Lawrence for her enlightening talk on caste, class and gender, Dr. B.R.Ambedkar's pioneering framework of intersectionality in the social justice movement. Your expertise and thoughtful presentations have deeply enriched our understanding of the complex interplay of caste, class, gender and other identities in Indian society. You have inspired meaningful dialogue on Ambedkar's visionary contributions. I extend my sincere thanks to Professor Pushpa Chakrapani Garu, Director Academic, and Registrar Dr. L.V. Reddy Garu for their unwavering support in organizing this conference. A special note of gratitude goes to the organizing team and technical staff, including grade staff, the PRO branch, EMRC branch, computer section, engineering branch, and the graphics division for your tireless efforts behind the scenes. Your dedication ensured that every aspect of this event ran seamlessly. To all participants, academics, students, activists, and community members, both online and offline, thank you for your active engagement. We look forward to continued collaborations on this journey towards social transformation. Jai Bhim, thank you very much.
Yeah, Thanks to you also, Srinivas, for coming to our rescue. I thank our Vice Chancellor, Professor Ganta Chakrapani Garu, for facilitating this event to happen and all the week-long celebrations. And lastly, I thank my team, Ram Prasad, Anita, Uma, and all of them who are here and worked throughout the week to make this happening event. Arun also, yes, definitely. Thank you all once again for your kind cooperation and patience also. Thank you.